Ginny, it's 5:40. Go join the party, have some champagne. You're making me feel like Ebenezer Scrooge.
Thanks a lot, Miss De Niro. Do you think the baby can handle a little sip?
That baby's ready to tend bar.
The U.S. Surgeon General recently warned that drinking alcohol increases cancer risk. So does everyone need to give up alcohol? NPR's Allison Aubrey asked some experts.
If you choose to drink alcohol, the standard advice has long been to limit consumption to up to 1 drink a day for women, up to 2 for men. But many experts now say this amount of daily drinking may be too high. Dr. Ashish Didwania of Northwestern University is among them.
I very much agree with that, and I do think a change is needed.
Some research points to an increased risk of certain cancers and strokes, even with moderate drinking. So how much is okay? Didwania says the science does not offer up a precise answer. But after considering all the evidence, this is where he's landed.
My guidelines would be that drinking less than 7 drinks a week would be a healthier way to use alcohol.
Didwania points to a review that found lower risks for people who consume no more than that. And though there's no perfect study, given how difficult it is to precisely suss out the effects of alcohol on health, much of the evidence points in the same direction.
That does translate into, okay, if I have a cocktail or a beer, I take a couple days off, I shouldn't be scared.
And he says he feels comfortable with his level of drinking.
My personal threshold for alcohol consumption would fit with this evolution of less than 7 a week. I'll have 1 to 2 cocktails a couple days a week.
If you want to set your own threshold, you'll want to understand your personal risks and understand that even physicians come to slightly different conclusions about what amount of alcohol people can drink without increasing the risk of harms. Anna Lemke is a professor of psychiatry and addiction medicine at Stanford University School of Medicine. Her read of the evidence is that it's better to aim for fewer drinks.
If you drink no more than 1 to 2 standard drinks per week, you're probably not increasing your risk for bad health outcomes. But anything above that, and you are.
She says plenty of light drinkers do remain healthy. One explanation is that they may have other habits, such as a healthy diet and regular exercise. But all the times you may have heard that drinking red wine is beneficial, Lemke says the thinking has evolved.
Contrary to previous thinking about the Mediterranean diet or resveratrol, there's no evidence at all that drinking is healthy.
The better way to think about it is if you stay below a certain amount of alcohol, it's unlikely to be harmful, unless you've been counseled not to drink at all. Breast cancer risks may begin to increase with as little as 3 to 6 drinks a week. And Lemke says women are more susceptible to adverse outcomes from alcohol in general, perhaps due to hormones or differences in the way women metabolize alcohol. So it's best to stay below this.
If you really want to stay in the non-risky drinking zone, you would be drinking no more than 1 to 2 standard drinks per week.
So whether it's 2 drinks a week or something closer to 7, we could get more advice soon. U.S. alcohol guidelines are under review now as the consensus grows that less is better. Allison Aubrey, NPR News.
Gotta get my mind off the food. Gotta dream another dream, you know what I mean? Mustard pretzel, hers barbecue. Frank's very, very black cherry.
In today's health alert, U.S. regulators have banned red dye number 3 from food, drinks, and drugs. This comes nearly 35 years after it was banned in cosmetics. Our chief health editor, Dr. Partha Nandi, is here to tell us a little bit more about this. Dr. Nandi, why did it take so long, and what should people know about the risks?
Yeah, so red dye number 3 is made from petroleum, right? So when the FDA actually banned it back in 1990 in cosmetics, it was because research showed that it caused cancer in lab rats. But at that time, the FDA did not extend the ban to food or drugs the way it did, with cosmetics, because even though it caused cancer in rats, it didn't apply to humans. Later in 2022, however, 24 food safety and health advocates filed a petition that included older studies and research. In particular, a 2021 study actually showed in California that dyes like red number 3 can result in behavioral issues in children, like trouble focusing and memory issues. Since this dye is used in so many processed foods, especially the stuff that all kids like, right? Candy and sweets. Kids tend to consume more of it because they're smaller than adults. And that's why this ban is so important, in my opinion. Now, the FDA acted under what's called the Delaney Clause, and this says that any additive that's linked to cancer in humans or animals must be banned. Now, while the dye doesn't cause cancer in humans in the same way it does in rats, it's still smart to get rid of it, especially of the potential risks and the current legal levels that were set even decades ago.
Now, when does this ban take effect, and how can people avoid red dye number 3 until then?
So, food manufacturers have until January of 2027 to remove red number 3, and drug makers actually have until January 2028. Now, some companies have already started replacing it with natural options, which I love, like beet juice, right? Or pigments from foods like purple sweet potatoes, radishes, or red cabbage, all much better than what we have now. In the meantime, you can avoid this dye by checking ingredient labels. Just look for red dye number 3 or red 3 or FDNC red number 3. If you're taking medications, check the inactive ingredients. That's where you'll find it. And look for the section for dyes. And you can also ask your doctor about dye-free options, and always really consult with your doctor before making any changes, especially with medications. Remember, food dyes are used to make food more appealing, right? They don't offer any nutritional value. Plus, the ultra-processed foods that they're usually in, guess what? They're high in sweeteners, salt, and fat, things we don't need and should avoid. Instead, try choosing healthy whole foods, and they naturally don't have dyes and are packed with nutrients and often are attractive, in my opinion. So I think this is great news. As a parent, I know that kids are drawn to these bright colored foods. My kids are. This will make shopping a bit easier, and I like to shop with my kids, and I think this will be helpful to not have that option to have to worry about for your kids.
All right, Dr. Nandi, I know there has been a lot of concern from parents about this over the years. And if you have a health question for the doctor, you can email him, Dr. Nandi, at askdrnandi.com, or send it to us on Facebook or over on X. Mike?
And they're able to take these hired killers, put them in American planes with American bombs, and drop them on African villages, blowing to bits black men, black women, black children, black babies, and you black people sitting over here cool, like it doesn't even involve you. You're a fool. They'll do it to them today and do it to you tomorrow. Because you and I and they are all the same.
The world has been watching as workers emerge from a mine in South Africa after spending months trapped underground. They stayed there in a shaft 2, maybe even 3 kilometers deep near a town called Stilfontein. They are informal miners. The gold mine they were working was meant to have been decommissioned and sealed off. Images of these men being brought up from the depths of the earth are shocking. They were there for months without enough food and water. Many of them died there, and those still alive had to endure decomposing bodies alongside them. Thing is, they weren't trapped underground due to a rockfall or a mining accident. They were stuck there because the South African government and the company that owns the mine didn't mount an operation to retrieve them. People from the surrounding community did that with makeshift equipment till a court order last week compelled the government to act. The BBC's Mayeni Jones is in Stilfontein.
We weren't allowed close to the mine itself. The police kept us a few meters away, so we had to film from a distance. And you could see this crane, this big red crane, lowering this metal cage deep underground. The shaft is said to be at least 2 kilometers deep. The estimates seem to vary. Some authorities did say it could be as deep as 3 kilometers deep. So hourly, this cage was being lowered down, taking supplies down to the miners, and then coming back up with survivors. Initially, they were prioritizing the sickest, but they were also bringing up dead bodies. And I did ask a trade union representative what kind of prioritizing dead bodies when there were so many kind of sick and emaciated people down there. And they said it's because some of those bodies, some of these people had been dead for so long, their bodies were decomposing, and they were concerned that their families wouldn't be able to identify them if they waited much longer. So it was pretty sobering to see some of these miners being brought up. They were very emaciated, very skinny. You could see bones poking out of their shoulders and their backs. Some looked so small and so light that they looked almost like children. And the emergency services were having to help some of them walk because they could barely walk on their own. So I think it really brought home just how terrible the conditions were down there and how long these people have been going without food or water.
So people coming up, being helped, very, very emaciated. They've been there for a long time, some of them from back in August. Just tell us a little bit about these people, Mayeni. Who are they? And tell us about the community's reaction and the community's involvement in this.
So a number of these miners are said to be from the local community, from a local township. But the problem with this story, unfortunately, is that we don't know exactly how many miners are down there, right? Because it was an illegal operation. The authorities were keen to kind of point out that the vast majority of these miners are illegal migrants. And therefore, that is partly their problem with the operation. They say not only is it criminality, but it's also being carried out by people who shouldn't be in South Africa. But we did speak to a young South African woman called Zinzi Tom. Her brother, Ayanda, has been down in the mine since June. And she told us a bit more about him.
We hopefully today he will come out, because we are praying that today, at least because we have sent away that he should come closer. At least the guy helped us, told us that he's in 62 level, so we are praying that he comes out, because they say that he's not in a good condition. He wanted even to go out in a gators, so we don't know what's happening, but we have sent away to tell him to come. He's a quiet person. He doesn't like to disclose more about his life. Yes, that's why, as much as I'm doing this, but I'm trying to respect his privacy at the very same time, because he's a very quiet person.
We've just been listening to Zinzi Tom, the Mayeni, a young woman whose brother is stuck in the mine. And she said something that interested me, that, they had been helping people, bringing them to the surface and so on, because we know that the South African authorities, and you hinted at that as well, had made clear that they wanted to smoke these people out rather than rescue them from the dire situation that they were in. So what changed between November, when we first started covering this in any detail, to now, when the South African authorities are now actually bringing people to the surface and helping them out?
Yeah, what changed is that people like Zinzi, and supported by workers' unions, supported by rights groups, took the government to court to try and compel them to start a rescue operation. There had been a dispute over, for instance, who should bear the brunt of the cost of the operation. Local media saying that it will cost up to $628,000 to extract the miners from the shafts. So there was a dispute over who should cover it. The government said that the mine was owned by a company that should cover it because they had failed to seal the mine properly and stop miners from getting there. There was also issues around the depth of the mine. It's estimated to be between 2 and 3 kilometers deep, so they needed to find the right machinery to go there. But the government also has, as you mentioned, been cracking down on illegal mining. They launched this operation last year called Vala Umgodi, which in Zulu translates as close the hole. And part of their aim was to try and close as many of these unused mines as possible, but also to take a real hard line on any illegal miners that are found down there. And that's why initially, when we were covering the story, they were refusing to bring down food and water. They had sealed some of the exits to the mine. Rights groups said they had told them that there were people trapped down there. There was one exit, but it was very awkward. The local community said they had a makeshift rope that they were sending down the hole to try and pull people up, but it was taking up to an hour per person to bring them up. And also a lot of the miners were too weak towards the end to try and make that journey themselves. So the local community, supported by the trade unions, took the government to court, and on Friday the High Court in Pretoria found in their favour and compelled the government to start the rescue mission.
In the meantime, people have been dying, they're sick, there are dead bodies decomposing in the mines. Is there any hope that it can be speeded up because people are desperate and they've been there for so long.
I think what really kind of shifted the coverage of this story is video footage that was released on Monday showing the conditions down in the mine, showing these men that were starving, showing rows and rows of bodies wrapped in plastic. And that made it very urgent that these men be pulled out. We spoke to Mzuki Sijam. He's the provincial spokesperson for the South African National Civic Organization. It's an umbrella organization that works to protect workers' rights and defend them. And he explained to us a little bit what the issues were around the rescue.
My name is Mzuki Sijam. I'm the provincial spokesperson of the South African National Civic Organization in Northwest. The rescue operation officially started yesterday. They extracted about 26 live illegal miners and 9 dead bodies. This morning, as the rescue operation is continuing, they extracted about 8 live illegal miners and 6 dead bodies. We had initially requested that we take out the dead bodies first so that we avoid a situation where they decompose to an extent that their families cannot identify them anymore, because these are the dead bodies which have been there for quite some time. But then the police also suggested that we must take dead bodies and the very sick ones. The ones that we took out who are still alive are the very sick ones. So we are taking out dead bodies together with the very sick ones. We were told that the rescue operation should take about 10 days. We have agreed with the company that in the process, can they allow us to take food down there, and they promised that they will allow us. We are still waiting for some food items to get here so that we can take some food items down there. We were told by our own volunteers that the number that is still underground, we've got more than 400 illegal miners who are still alive, and they also reported that we've got more than 100 dead bodies underground who are also decomposing. So we spoke to the company, considering that they said they were given 10 days to say can they prolong their working hours, and they agreed that today they will work from 6 in the morning perhaps until late in the evening, let's say around 10, so that we try and make sure that we get everyone out of that hole.
That's the BBC's Mayani Jones.
Saying if it was not for the white people who practice racism, white supremacy, Mr. President Obama would not be in the White House?
If any black person who forgets that is forgetting a very important fundamental. He couldn't even been running. His name would have not been known. He wouldn't have had a white mother in Kansas.
KC developers score $15.5 million from feds to rebuild homes in historic black-owned co-op. Officials announced this week that developers snagged a multi-million-dollar federal grant to help rebuild a historically black former housing cooperative on Kansas City's east side. Plans have been in the works for years to redevelop Parade Park Homes, one of the country's oldest black-owned housing co-ops, until 2022. The complex, in the 18th and Vine Jazz district, faced high vacancy rates and poor conditions in some units in recent years, and community leaders have pushed to find a way forward. Flaherty and Collins Properties and 12th Street Heritage Development Corporation took ownership of the site last spring, and the city approved plans in the fall to remake Parade Park Homes with over 1,000 new homes. Current residences would be demolished and replaced with mixed-use commercial space, new amenities, and a mix of housing units at various price points, including market-rate units, affordable units, and senior housing. The plan includes protections for current residents from displacement and prioritizes them for the new units. The project, with a 9-digit price tag, will be constructed in phases through spring 2031. On Wednesday, Representative Emmanuel Cleaver II, Democrat Missouri, announced that the project will be awarded a $15.5 million federal grant through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The funding comes through the department's Section 202 Supportive Housing for the Elderly program, which offers funding for the rehabilitation and development of housing for people aged 62 and up with qualifying incomes. I am so happy that my staff and I were successful in convincing HUD that Parade Park is a viable and valuable place to invest in the future of Kansas City's Jazz District, Rep. Cleaver said in a statement. With this funding, our community has taken another major step in expanding access to affordable housing while maintaining local control of this historic property, which is the foundation to vibrant and prosperous communities. Cleaver said the work has been a team effort to ensure that Parade Park residents can remain in their homes and the community can receive redevelopment needed to create affordable housing for families on Kansas City's east side. The work is not finished, but this is a major victory for the people of Kansas City, and I'm thrilled to have helped play a role in making it possible, Cleaver said. Mayor Quinton Lucas said on Facebook that the grant will help build a bright future. Parade Park Homes on 18th Street is an important part of our history, Kansas City's Black heritage, and will continue to be a vital housing development welcoming Kansas Cityans of all ages, Lucas said.
Cali, you might catch me in Atlanta, looking like a boss. New Orleans and then Miami, party in New York. Texas, I be screwed up. Chi-town, I be really pimpin', but nothing like my hometown. Know what I'm living. They come from all around the world for the. What can I say? Welcome to LA.
The Palisades and Eaton fires devastated homes, businesses, places of worship, and multiple schools. In the Altadena area, 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and several private schools have either been damaged or completely destroyed. And in the Palisades, 2 public elementaries, the West Side Waldorf and the Village School, have also been leveled. Palisades High sustained damage to about 40% of its facilities. The destruction is leaving students and parents wondering and worried about what's next. We're going to talk about that now with Angelinos, coordinator of the West Side Waldorf, which is helping navigate the school's next steps. And Darby Rastegar is senior at Pali High, and she's evacuated from her home in the Palisades. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Madeline.
Darby, let me begin with you. You're evacuated. You're still not in school. How are you holding up? I'm sure you have lots of friends who have lost everything.
Yes, it's been absolutely devastating because the Palisades has always been so resilient and strong. And kind of just to see my neighborhood, which was once filled with so much life and tradition, it's so upsetting to see it filled with homes burned to the ground, and all of my friends who have lost their homes as well. It's very hard to see, and it's just a huge disruption to the way of life that we've previously been living.
Yeah, I can't imagine what you're going through. And so far you haven't been able to go back to school, but I understand that school is starting online on Monday. What are you expecting?
Yeah, it's definitely a flashback to COVID learning. And my mom and I were talking about how funny it is because it's just a full circle moment to kind of be introduced into high school in a time where COVID has just ended and then finish it out online as well. So it is bittersweet. It's going to bring back a lot of memories from the isolation we faced during COVID, but I think it's going to be a source of rebuilding a sense of connection and normalcy for the screen again.
So you're a senior. This is the end of your high school years. Yeah. Wow. So you'll be online for the rest of the year, you think?
I am holding hope that we will return in person or find a temporary learning space in another school. We have a school Instagram that has been updating, and we are trying to find a temporary space. So I think that as devastating as this fire has been, our school has proven to be resilient, and we're forming connections online and through social media. So I'm hoping we'll return in person. There is no definite response or answer to that right now, but we're all holding our hopes up.
Yeah, I hope so too. And Jim, your school, the West Side Waldorf School, was lost completely, right? Burned to the ground?
As far as we know, our grades 1 through 8 campus burned to the ground, and we don't have news yet on the structures that were part of our early childhood center, but they were still smoldering at last report, and we keep seeing videos where more and more of it is missing.
So what are your students doing now?
So we've been very fortunate because we have a satellite campus in Santa Monica, and our teachers were very eager to provide a safe space for students. So we've been able to accommodate some of our students there are early childhood and grades 1 through 3. School began on Monday. And then we have another location that was kindly given to the school by family that we will accommodate our, 4 through 7 at. The teachers really, all of us feel that school at this moment is a service to the community in bringing back some safety and normalcy for the children who've lost their school. And in our community, many have lost homes and are still displaced as well.
Wow. How are you handling that? How do you conduct classes? What are you talking about? Are you kind of suspending normal instruction to just, be a place to talk about the fires and express feelings and that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what our school as a Waldorf school does best is it really works with that sense of life and safety and groundedness. So what our teachers have really been striving to do is to go back to where children have muscle memory, the rhythms, the routines, the sounds, the being together, because it allows children to regulate and come out of that fight or flight that many of them have been in, just even being around their parents who are dealing with the adult concerns and their own trauma. So school for the children is a place to do that. And for the parents, it's being able to connect with other parents and then have a moment, a few hours in their day where they can take care of the practical needs of displacement or the loss of a home, and also deal with their own, emotional needs without having to fall apart around their children all the time, and, to create spaciousness and to get out of fight or flight themselves.
Yeah. Are you in contact with other schools and leaders at other schools?
Yes. We also had a sister school, the Pasadena Waldorf School in Altadena, that burned down. They lost their kindergarten and grades campus as well. And the Waldorf community is very interconnected, really worldwide. So we have a few of our sort of umbrella organizations that have been helping us mobilize support, schools that are offering to create spaces for our children free of tuition until our school is able to get back on its feet, and just an outpouring of support there. But there's a lot of work to do. Yeah.
Darby, what kind of support do you want from the leaders at your school, your teachers, fellow students?
I think that what is the most helpful in such a crisis like this is concrete examples of support and help, like friends who reach out and give you addresses for clothing drives, and people who are offering to have our voices heard on news stations like this, and even just fighting for temporary spaces at other schools is what really makes a difference.
Right, to know that you are being paid attention to, that people care, that, yes, and to do something positive.
Yes, 100%.
So you're off to college in the fall. Do you know where you're going?
Not yet. I'm hearing back in the spring.
Okay. So how do you feel about that now? Are you looking at it differently?
Totally. I think with the fires, we were all in the midst of stress with college applications and school, but once this happened, we all kind of woke up, I want to say, and started to realize how important it is to live in the moment. But needless to say, I am still very excited to experience like a new independent lifestyle, but I'm also going to be very connected with this community that has raised me. So I'm interested to see what it's going to be like now that this has all happened.
Well, we're thinking of you, and we wish you the very best as you move forward.
Thank you so much.
And same to you, Anjem. That's Darby Rastiger, senior at Pali High, and Anjem Mir, coordinator at the Westside Waldorf School. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Thanks.
To live and die in LA.
In Los Angeles, crews from the Environmental Protection Agency are showing up in hazmat suits. They're digging through all the potential hazardous waste the fires have left behind. NPR's Ping Huang reports.
It's a huge, dangerous, problematic mess. That's what the wildfires have left behind.
Pesticides, fertilizers, paint, solvents.
Steve Kalanog is the EPA's deputy incident commander for the Southern California wildfires.
Cleaners, compressed gas cylinders.
He says what they're looking for are typical household items turned dangerous by the heat.
Pottery kilns and things like that. And then, of course, there's always a plethora of damaged ammunition from sporting rifles and what have you.
All of these are things that could react, explode, or cause corrosion and other problems if they leak. Kalanog has worked on cleanups after wildfires for more than 15 years. A huge problem he's seen in recent times is lithium-ion batteries in electric cars. He says they can catastrophically catch fire in the days, weeks, and even months ahead.
We have to treat them as an unexploded ordnance. And we have to take great care at removing them from vehicles. We have to take great care in transporting them to the appropriate location to render them safe.
And then there are the invisible dangers. Crew members come with air monitors and detectors to look for explosive or toxic compounds, and even sometimes radiation. Kalanog's message to the general public is don't try to clean this up yourself.
All of our team are outfitted with air purifying respirators, hard hats, head-to-toe tie-back, and other protective gear.
And they're trained to deal with things like asbestos, used to fireproof old homes, which can contribute to lung disease and cancer risks if inhaled. The Los Angeles wildfires have burned more than 12,000 structures and 40,000 acres. So Kalanog says this first phase, it may take a few months. But even after it's done, it doesn't mean your property is safe.
There's partially destroyed structures where walls can collapse, and certainly plenty of things like broken glass and nails that folks can injure themselves on.
It's at this point in the process, with this kind of debris, that the cleanup gets turned over to the Army Corps of Engineers and contractors. Yana Garcia is California's Secretary for Environmental Protection. She knows that people are eager to get back to their properties, but she can't say when that will happen.
We completely understand the extraordinary, unprecedented nature of the devastation that we're facing across the Los Angeles area.
She's hoping people can be patient a little longer.
We are maintaining the sense of urgency and the priority to get everyone back onto their property as soon as possible.
It's important to do the cleanup right, she says, to keep people from getting sick or hurt now and in the long run. Ping Huang, NPR News.
As the Los Angeles area continues to battle devastating wildfires, the county health department is telling residents to wear masks.
High winds may disperse the ashes from the Palisades, Eaton, and other fire-burned scars. Wind-blown ash from burned structures may contain higher air toxic levels.
Ash and wildfire smoke have led to unhealthy air quality around Los Angeles. It's a common theme in California. Whenever there's a wildfire, the air quality can be dangerous. Now, health officials warn the more wildfires burn around the state, the worse the environmental impacts.
During periods of wildfire smoke, we do see more children show up with various respiratory complaints. So things like bronchitis and pneumonia and asthma and wheezing, for example.
Tell is a professor of pediatrics at Stanford Medicine. She has studied how climate change impacts our health and says wildfire smoke can be especially dangerous.
Even if you are otherwise healthy, recognizing that because of climate change, we're going to be experiencing these wildfires more often, don't take it for granted that you're healthy today.
Recent studies show wildfire smoke has offset efforts to clean up the air. Tony Marks Block studies wildfires at Cal State East Bay. He says California laws have made strides in reducing fossil fuel pollution, but he says wildfire smoke keeps the air dirty.
When you have these really intense releases of pollutants over a number of days, it's going to reverse a number of these advances that have occurred.
What can get done to help limit these fires and the health concerns they bring?
So this speaks to one of the many benefits of intentional prescribed fire, which is you can set a fire on a day when you know the smoke plume is going to not sit around in an air basin where there's millions of people like Los Angeles.
He hopes California uses more of these measures so the next fire won't be so devastating. Ryan Curry, KCRA 3 News.
And the professor goes on to say that CAL FIRE has increased the amount of these prescribed burns, but he encourages them to be doing more.
Please, no more parties in LA. Please, baby, no more parties in LA. No more parties in LA. Please, baby, no more parties in LA. No more parties in LA. Please, baby, no more parties in LA. I'm out here from a very far away place. A chance to be a star. Nowhere seems to be too far.
The wildfires that began a week ago displaced tens of thousands of people across our region, many of whom are now looking for a place to live. They're entering LA's brutal, competitive, and already crowded rental market.
My life kind of stopped, to an abrupt halt, essentially, and I don't really know where we're going to go. Our rent was so cheap because my dad knew the guy, and that helped us out immensely, so yeah. I don't really know what we're going to do.
KCRW's Danielle Chiriguayo has been talking with displaced residents about what they've been dealing with and where they might go and what kind of price gouging laws will protect them. Danny, welcome to Press Play, and thanks for your reporting so far.
Hey, Madeline, thanks for having me.
Well, okay, we just heard from a woman named Jo Mojica, and you met her at the evacuation center in Pasadena. Tell us more about her story.
Yeah, so Jo, she is 23, she's in college, and right now she's supposed to be working on her psychology degree, but instead, her dad and their little cat, his name's Boots, they lost their Altadena apartment in the Eaton Canyon fire. Jo's dad, June, he moved to the U.S. from the Philippines decades ago, and the tragic thing here is that this is not the first time that they have lost their home. Here's her father, June.
And then we purchased our house before, that was 1997, I think. Yeah, and I lived there for more than 7 years. And then we just it just happened that the economy was down, so we lost our house.
This was during the financial crisis, and now, all these years later, Jo, June, and Boots, following this fire, they are staying with family friends in Long Beach. But Jo, his daughter, says that it is completely unaffordable for low-income families like theirs. Right now, they're looking at apartments in surrounding cities like Alhambra and Rosemead and El Monte, but it is tough for them. I also talked to Matt Salgado, whose mom lost her home. Here he is.
She lived in a duplex, and there was video that we happened to see somebody on that street. They took video walking down, and it's completely leveled. There's absolutely nothing. The red steps in front of her unit are there, but the entire street is gone.
Matt's mom and the rest of the family, they are trying to hang in there. Right now actually better said, she used to be staying in a hotel in Montebello, but they are now out of space. So Matt is now moving her to another hotel out in Orange County. The good thing is that is closer to him and his wife. But Madeline, all of this is just temporary as this family is trying to find a new place to rent, for his mom.
Right. Yeah, and so they're joining so many other people desperate to find a place to rent. And of course, there is a big concern over price gouging. It is illegal to raise rents by more than 10% during a state of emergency. That's under California law. However, we've been hearing anecdotes of people just not either knowing that law exists or just flouting it. What are you seeing?
Right now I am literally looking at a Zillow listing. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 900 square foot apartment near the Getty. And if you look over at the price history on December 30th, Madeline, it was listed at $2,600. That rent was increased by nearly 20% less than a week ago on January 10th to $3,100. Listings like this, of course, I want to make sure to just say this. Some of these we don't know what the case is. We don't know. There will be investigations on many of these listings that are being reported. But Madeline, there is a spreadsheet that is going around right now, and there are more than 700 submissions of what could be maybe illegal price increases on single-family homes and on apartments. These are on Zillow. Some of these actually have been removed since they made it to the spreadsheet. But again, if you go to price history, you can see increases of 10, 20, 30, sometimes more percent in the week since the fires broke out. The woman behind the spreadsheet, her name is Chelsea Kirk. She is with the LA Tenants Union, and she told me that she started it because she saw a 3-bedroom house in her Echo Park neighborhood listed for $12,000 a month.
So I was like, this is illegal. This is disgusting. These people should be profoundly ashamed of what they're doing.
And Chelsea tells me that she has had a lot of volunteers in just the past few days to sift through submissions and also report them to the city of Los Angeles and to Attorney General Rob Bonta. I reached out to Bonta's office, and we still have not received a statement back, but he and his office have been vocal about how price gouging is illegal. I also reached out to the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. I sent them a few examples of Zillow listings that appear to have jumped dramatically, well over that 10% threshold. And I also asked about the spreadsheet. They told me in a statement that these are not examples of price gouging, and that in fact many of them are new to the market and are coming from owners who are trying to help during an emergency situation. The statement came from Dan Nicholson. He's the head of the AAGLA, and he says that the group has also been asking housing providers to provide discounts through the form of reduced or even no security deposits, and that several of these folks have done so.
Right, because there's a difference between if the apartment has already been listed, that you can't raise the rent 10%, but if it has never been listed, you can charge more, I suppose. You don't have to, there's no 10% to go back to, right?
Yeah, there is a lot of California law, penal codes to really parse through here. But look, yes, as you said, Madeline, the daily price cannot be increased by more than 10% following a declaration of emergency. If you're a landlord who was on a daily or even short-term basis, like an Airbnb, for example, and then decide to rent it on a full-time or monthly basis, that new listing cannot exceed 160% of the fair market value, and that's according to HUD. Also, a landlord can't try to get around this by saying that they're providing more services now, think gardening or cleaning or utilities or a shorter term lease. These are loopholes that officials are trying to close.
Okay, so there are resources out there, right, for people who have been displaced, people maybe who are new to the rental market and don't know where they can go. What kind of resources are there?
Yeah, so like I said, it can be extremely tough to find these resources, but again, tenants groups out there want to see a lot of action from state and local governments. I spoke to Larry Gross. He is the executive director for the Coalition for Economic Survival, and he says that right now what Angelinos need is a rent freeze and an eviction moratorium.
You need to ensure that the people who are currently have roofs over their heads are not pushed out by landlords who are looking to get higher rents.
Gross tells me that this is not impossible. Madeline, think back to just the pandemic. We saw these measures put into place, moratoriums on rent increases and on evictions. In the meantime, renters can apply for state and even federal disaster relief through FEMA. If eligible, folks can receive transitional shelter assistance, direct temporary housing, or even grants that can go towards childcare and transportation. There's also the one-time $770 serious needs assistance payment, which can go to essentials like food. And by the way, none of these resources are loans, and so they are not considered taxable income, and they will not affect any eligibility for programs like Social Security or SNAP benefits. So yeah, Madeline, there are options out there for renters and not just for homeowners, all these folks who have just been devastated by these fires.
Okay, great. Some good news there. KCW's Danielle Chiriguayo. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madeline.
Earlier today, LA County firefighter Dennis Vineyard was shot and killed battling a blaze at a suspected Compton drug den. We're at the Vineyard home right now, and Lieutenant Vineyard's oldest son, Derek, has agreed to talk with us for a moment. Derek, if you could come down here, please, for just a second. Look, I know this is tough, but how do you feel right now?
How do you think I feel? I think it's typical.
Typical how?
Well, this country's becoming a haven for criminals, so what do you expect? You know, decent, hardworking Americans like my dad are getting rubbed out by social parasites.
Parasites?
Blacks, browns, yellow, whatever.
I don't understand. You're saying that you think maybe your father's murder was race-related?
Yeah, it's race-related. Every problem in this country is race-related, not just crime. It's like immigration, AIDS, welfare. Those are problems of the black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community. They're not white problems.
Derek, aren't those really issues that deal more with poverty?
No, no. They're not products of their environments either. That's crap. Minorities don't give two shits about this country. They come here to exploit it, not to embrace it.
What does this have to do?
Millions of white European Americans came here and flourished, within a generation. So what the fuck is the matter with these people? They have to go around shooting at firemen.
What does this have to do with the murder of your father?
Because my father was murdered doing his job. Putting out a fire in a fucking nigger neighborhood he shouldn't have even given a shit about. He got shot by a fucking drug dealer who probably still collects a welfare check.
I'm sorry.
Amid the devastation in Los Angeles, a little-known industry has come into the spotlight: private firefighters. Here to tell us more about this is NPR's Laurel Walmsley. Hi, Laurel.
Hey, Layla.
So, Laurel, the only time I'd ever heard about private firefighters, if you remember a wildfire a few years ago in the Los Angeles area where Kim Kardashian and her husband at the time, Kanye West, hired private firefighters to save their homes, and it sounded like something only for the most wealthy.
Right. So these are back in the news here in Los Angeles, and a lot of the attention is stemming from this single tweet that's now been deleted. Last week, a resident of the wealthy Pacific Palisades area posted on X asking if anyone had access to private firefighters who could protect his home as his neighbors' homes were burning. He said he would, quote, pay any amount. And of course, there was a lot of blowback to that idea. It struck a lot of folks as unfair and just crummy. And so there have been media reports of billionaires hiring private firefighters to protect their homes and businesses. But of course, many wealthy people did lose their homes in these fires. I found that a much bigger part of this story is actually not the individuals hiring extra fire protection, but that insurers are hiring them as part of people's homeowners policies.
Oh, okay. That's something I didn't know. Insurance companies were doing this? What exactly do these services do?
Yeah, so I spoke with David Torgerson. He's executive chairman of Wildfire Defense Companies, and they work on behalf of nearly 36 insurers, and they're regulated under California law. So when there's a wildfire endangering homes insured by these companies, his crews arrive loaded with water, but most of what they provide is labor.
We clean, we sweep, we clear gutters, we take away the places where the embers can ignite on the property, or take away the access that the embers have to get in the buildings.
Embers can get into a house through the dryer vent, so his crews will tape those shut. They'll also come back after the fire passes to make sure there isn't a bush or a fence that's burning that could still ignite the house.
So for the insurance companies, they are paying for these firefighters, but is this about limiting their losses by the much larger expense of properties burning down in the first place?
It's about prevention rather than having to pay for replacing all those lost homes. So more and more insurers are including this as a standard part of their homeowners policies in wildfire-prone states.
How does this work? Does a truck full of trained firefighters and water just show up to protect homes that have these specific insurers and then just ignore everybody who doesn't have those insurers?
Well, it's obviously sort of hard to know exactly what happens in the field. When I asked a spokesperson at the insurer USAA that question, she said the providers that they work with don't just drive on by a house that's on fire, that they're staffed with a lot of retired fire chiefs, and it's just embedded in them to help the community. But still, private companies obviously might have different priorities than firefighters who work for the public.
Okay, so stepping back, does this just mean that rich people or people with the right coverage get a separate lane from the rest of people?
Yeah, I asked an ethics expert about this, and he said there are a whole host of ethical questions here. For instance, which firefighters get access to limited water supplies? It can be really divisive in society when it feels like even in a crisis, the rich and powerful get insulated from what's happening. And I asked Torgerson about this, who runs that company that works for the insurers. And he said, well, in a crisis, we need all the help we can get, and it's better to have more structures survive. They're helping to keep insurance in the marketplace, he says, which has been a huge problem in California in recent years. So these are big questions, and there are no easy answers.
NPR's Laurel Walmsley. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
My father's hard of hearing. So the adjuster was there, and as he was leaving, he goes, hey, man, my father, I can't hear, but I just want you to be fair. Be fair with me. The guy had already told us, I'm not paying you anything. So the guy turns beet red and goes, just be fair. Thank you, So we drive 70 miles to Baton Rouge. I said, wait until we get to Baton Rouge to tell Daddy. So he said, listen, I said, really, we got to explain to you, you know, insurance company's not going to pay you anything. You know, you are not in good hands, you know, with Allstate. You done. I said, what? Nah, man. I've been paying the people for 50 years. Nah. I said, no, Daddy, not giving. He said, what? He said, man, don't tell me that, man. Why you didn't tell me in New Orleans? I would have killed that man. I said, that's why I didn't tell you.
It's been a week since Santa Ana winds, known by some Californians as devil winds, unleashed a fiery nightmare on northern Los Angeles.
The wind was blowing at 128 kilometers per hour. And when you have hurricane-force winds and you have a fire breaking out, all hell broke loose.
Flames are still bearing down on neighborhoods, while residents in others slowly return to their streets.
The best word for it would be apocalyptic. It's the complete decimation of an entire vibrant community, the most vibrant community within the city of Los Angeles.
In the middle of winter, at least 25 people have been killed, dozens still unaccounted for, more than 10,000 structures lost. Jessica Rogers is one of those in Pacific Palisades whose home has been reduced to ashes.
I live in the perfect American dream home with a white picket fence and cute little rose bush growing over the front door. The only thing that remains that would look anything like my home is the white picket fence sort of blew off but did not burn. And what you see is you see all the way through, so there's no house to see.
Jessica faces the confronting reality that she may not have insurance coverage.
I brought all my paperwork with me. I went through all my paperwork, and when I couldn't find anything, I then went through all my bank accounts, and I still couldn't find anything. And I received a notice from my insurance broker saying, I haven't insured you since 2023.
Jessica is now seeking legal advice.
The reality is that it wasn't just homes that were destroyed. We have large homeowners associations that were taken down. We have large commercial buildings and large businesses that were taken down as well. So it's a destruction on a magnitude that I don't think anyone has seen here ever.
Insurance broker Nick Ramirez has more than 6 clients who have lost everything.
I have these little blue icons, these home icons. These are clients of mine that live in these areas, right? All 3 of these were total losses. In this area over here, here's another total loss over here on the left side, as you can see it.
How are you dealing with the magnitude of this disaster?
It's like a war room in my office. It's really challenging.
In California, there are government controls on the amount insurers can charge for premiums. In recent years, many major insurers have pulled back on homeowners' coverage in high-risk wildfire areas.
The consequence of that, though, has been that insurers have not been allowed to price for the real risk that they face there. And what that means is a whole lot of insurers have just walked away from California and said it's too much, it's too hard.
They got out because of the concentration of risk. Simply put, they had too much risk in very small areas that were really, really dangerous. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's massive amounts of losses that still haven't even been tallied yet.
We had a fire in Malibu a couple years ago, and from that point forward, State Farm and many other insurance companies backed out. Every time one of my neighbors would get dropped, they would call and they'd say, I just got dropped from my insurance. Do you know of an insurance?
With major insurers pulling out of high-risk areas, more homeowners have turned to the Californian government for coverage. The government's policy, known as the FAIR Plan, is meant to be the insurance policy of last resort.
The California FAIR Plan had a lot of written exposure on the books, and they didn't have that much money in reserves. That's the concern right now, is that there's an insurance carrier who was the second largest in the state behind State Farm that was writing a lot of risk, and No one else wanted to write it. So the reality is the law of large numbers. All the people who live in the high fire areas have this one insurance carrier.
Ours is a whole-of-nation approach with a single key set of rules at a federal government level. In the United States, it's state by state, which has implications for insurers on how wide they can spread their risk, but also a huge complexity for the sector in trying to do things differently.
Federal Labor MP Susan Templeman lost her own home to a bushfire in the Blue Mountains in 2013. Last year, she went on an industry-funded tour of the US insurance landscape. Because of the global nature of the insurance industry, she believes the Californian fires will have implications here in Australia.
What happens in one place has a flow-on to other insurance premiums. It's not surprising that people are warning we could see increases in premiums.
People are sort of saying it's a 20 to 30 billion US type event, which is a very large event. And that'll be shared amongst sort of the carriers of the US as well as sort of the global reinsurance partners that sort of support those carriers.
The reinsurance market is the safety net for insurance companies, essentially insurance for insurance. Nick Hawkins, Chief Executive of Insurance Australia Group, says his company has no exposure in the US. He says it's too early to tell what the exact cost of the LA fires will be on the insurance industry in Australia.
It could have some impact. I think it'll be quite modest. If the event sort of stays at that 20 or 30 billion US, which I know sounds gigantic and is terrible for the people involved, but it's a very large global market, the reinsurance market. If it stays at that sort of level, then I think the flow-through impact on sort of property insurance in Australia, there'll be a little bit, but I think it'll be quite modest.
In LA, this crisis is far from over. More than 88,000 people remain under evacuation orders, a further 80,000 on standby. Hot, dry winds will see the fire risk elevated until at least Thursday. Only when the danger subsides can Southern California begin counting the final cost.
I was talking to my sister today. She works in retail in a pretty, affluent area. And she said that her coworker told her the last 4 people that she had helped lost their homes in the fire. I thought that was just really jarring and interesting because where she was working, I don't want to say where she works, but it was kind of a place for non-essential. So I thought it was really interesting that they were there.
Finally, seeing some containment. It's small, but some containment in the massive wildfires here in greater Los Angeles. The Eaton fire, which is approaching 14,000 acres, is now 3% contained, at least 3% contained. That fire has devastated so many communities. In Altadena, including many black homeowners who have been there for a long, long time. KCRW's Megan Jamerson has been doing some reporting in Altadena today, and she's here now to talk us through how that community has been affected. It's obviously taken it so hard. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Steve.
There is important history with the black community, right? And Altadena, remind us of some of that.
Yes, this is a very well-established black community. 19% of the residents here in Altadena are black, according to the census, which, as you know, is much higher than a lot of Los Angeles. And this goes back several generations. There was this pocket here in Altadena that was not part of redlining. So during the Great Migration, a lot of black Southern families landed here and were able to buy homes and have now been here for 3 to 4 generations in some cases. And there's so much pride here about that ownership. So we don't have specific data by race, but overall, Altadena has a 70% home ownership rate. There's also historic black figures who grew up here, like the jazz musician Eli Adams.
All right. So what are some of the stories that you're hearing from those black residents of Altadena?
Sure. I spoke with the Jones family, who unfortunately lost their home. Denise Jones and her husband Adonis. She has lived there in that house since she was about 5 years old. Adonis grew up in Pasadena and is a longtime high school football coach in the area. So their home is up in the hills of Altadena. So they were especially vulnerable to the Eaton fire. Adonis says that when they went back to look at the home yesterday, all that is left is their chimney, and just a couple of homes on their street survived.
It looked like a 1930 war movie. Like it was a bomb that just hit and destroyed all the properties, and like smoke still going up in the air, little bonfires still burning, wires hanging.
They evacuated to Fontana to stay with family. Denise described to me how yesterday, finally, this surreal feeling hit her.
You know how you've been on vacation for what seems like so long and you just want to go home? And I just kept thinking in my head, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, you don't have a home to go to.
Mm-hmm. Denise is speaking to trauma here, and we've been hearing this from officials this week. Mental health is one of the biggest issues people will face.
Oh, of course. I mean, you just hear it in her voice. And what about the physical rebuilding? I mean, she's talking about, I want to go home. I mean, are they determined to rebuild?
Yes, there's absolutely no question they want to rebuild. They are, of course, not sure exactly how yet they'll be able to do that. They do have insurance, but it won't cover everything. And like a lot of families, they now have GoFundMes. Their daughter, Racial Jones, told me that a lot of people in the neighborhood want to rebuild, and she says that they will use the strength of their ancestors who helped build this community in the first place to sustain them through this process.
Each family, Megan, is facing its own monumental challenge, but then there's the work of preserving the community writ large as a whole. A lot of that is intangible, right? What's being done to make sure that as many people as possible get the resources to I mean, again, you can rebuild, but to keep that community together, to keep it all together?
Yes, exactly. I mean, there are a lot of groups mobilizing and taking on those efforts and working to create, in particular, a fund. There's a South LA Freemasons Lodge. They are working with prominent African-American law firms, like the Cochran law firm of the late Johnny Cochran. James Bryant is a partner there who helped set up a GoFundMe.
What I don't want to have happen is that this small Black community be forgotten. When the Pasadena Convention Center is no longer a temporary shelter, and when FEMA comes in to do whatever they're going to do, that's still not going to be enough to address so many of these displaced families that are currently just scrambling to figure out what they're going to do tomorrow.
Bryant says their goal is to raise $5 million to provide temporary housing and aid in this rebuilding effort.
And by the way, we'll have a link to how you can help in that effort at our website, where this story will live, at our website, kcrw.com. KCRW's Megan Jamerson with some reporting today from Altadena. Megan, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
People are still missing, 7 people from the Palisades fire and 24 from the Eaton fire.
And now the Sheriff's Department is taking new steps to try and find them. KCAL's Joy Benedict is live in Altadena with what they're doing. Joy.
Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking, you guys. It's heartbreaking to look around this community and realize that there isn't much left. It's heartbreaking when you hear how many people lost their lives in this fire and the Palisades fire. And for many other families out there, they're still wondering, what if? Did their loved one survive, or did something worse happen? It feels like endless blocks of missing homes, as the burn scar from the Eaton fire is unimaginable. But what is hard for many to comprehend is the number of people still missing.
Hanley just seems to have disappeared.
Ron Clark is talking about his friend, retired Professor Tim Hanley, who is one of 36 people still listed as missing from the Eaton or Palisades fires.
I heard about the fire, and then I just started calling his house number. He's never had a cell phone. He's kind of anti-technology that way.
The 88-year-old lived here on East Palm Street for decades. His house burned, but there is no sign of him. His car is also missing.
I don't know where he's been getting his dialysis.
And that's scary.
Yes. I've tried the Red Cross shelter. They haven't been able to find him. I've tried all the hospitals around there. He hasn't shown up at any of them. He is a patient. He has Kaiser insurance, so he's a patient of Kaiser.
The Sheriff's Department says Hanley was last seen on Friday, January 10th, meaning he survived the fire, but since has disappeared. The coroner's office has 27 people listed as dying because of this fire, and many have yet to be identified, making the situations even more terrifying for those looking for loved ones.
I just don't know where he would have gone at this point.
So the Sheriff's Department and LAPD are asking everyone to look at these photos and flyers because many of the missing are older and may not know that there are people out there looking and still praying for their safety.
It is a horrific tragedy that I don't think we've ever seen before. And it's going to take a long time to sort all of this out and for everyone to process everything.
So tough for so many. Now I am being told by officials looking through this fire that they have finished the search for any human remains, so that at least can rule that out of this sort of puzzle and this equation, but certainly a lot of unanswered questions, missing people, and just so much sadness and devastation that we know is going to take years to rebuild this community. I'll say about you.
Hope they find out soon. Joy, thanks.
To see the blaze lay these vibrant and soulful places to waste so quickly is still so surreal. And every day, as firefighters continue to return to those destroyed homes here in Altadena and in the Palisades, we've been learning more about the people who didn't escape the deadly wildfires. Our Ellen Wagner has a closer look at some of those lives lost.
Among the devastation caused by the fires, there are losses that are irreplaceable. Loved ones, friends. Across the county, the Eaton fire claimed the lives of a father and his son. Anthony Mitchell, an amputee who used a wheelchair, lived in Altadena with his son Justin, who had cerebral palsy. He told his family he'd called for an ambulance and was waiting to be evacuated. The 67-year-old was found by his son's bedside. He was not going to leave his son behind, his daughter said, no matter what. Rodney Nickerson lived in his home on Alta Pine Drive for over 50 years. The 82-year-old was a leader at the Weller Street Missionary Baptist Church and would go to Skid Row to feed hot meals to those experiencing homelessness. His son Eric recalled the last time they spoke on the phone.
But he said, son, the winds are picking up really bad. Really bad. I tried to talk to him the next morning. And the next morning I couldn't talk to my dad.
Rodney's daughter said he lived in that now destroyed home since it was purchased in 1968 for just $5. We've heard so many stories just like that of deep roots here in Altadena, including the Williams family. 4 generations had grown up here and lived here, and now 4 generations are facing the same uncertain future. Reporter Jillian Jorgensen has their story.
To imagine the life you build for years and years, and just to see it reduced to this.
Ishelle Williams has lived in this Altadena home for 16 years. When she evacuated Tuesday morning at 3:30 a.m., she didn't have time to grab much.
A few pictures. My grandmother had a clock, a 25-year anniversary clock from Alpha Beta grocery store that she worked at, so we got that. We got my father's ashes, his flag from the military, and a few more things. Not much. I think when you when you think you're coming back, you only take a little bit.
But there will be no coming back to the same home for Williams, nor for her mother, nor for two of her sisters. All of their homes burned in the Eaton fire. They're now staying in a hotel in Sherman Oaks, thanks to the generosity of a law firm. But they don't know where they'll be in just a few days.
It's a blessing to live so close to your family. But in this situation, that blessing turned into all of us not having or having the ability to support one another.
They were able to support one another the night of the fire, keeping in communication and deciding as a group to evacuate, allowing all 10 adults, 5 kids, 4 dogs, and 1 parrot to make it to safety.
About 3 in the morning, we start cresting the hill, and it's just blazing, and we all, as a collective, start calling each other, I think we should get out. So all of us got out, we go outside, and it's just pitch black because there's no power at that point. The wind is swirling, the ash is in the air, and we're just like frantically trying to get out in the dark.
Ishel's sister Kimberly Williams Gilliam lost her home, the home their grandmother purchased in 1976.
My grandmother's things was there. Everything, all our pictures that we thought we'd be able to go back to is just gone. But at the same time, my main thought is like everybody got out. Even with all the devastation, we all are still together.
Kimberly and Ishel lived just around the corner from their mother, Matilda, whose home, where the family was raised, also burned. In addition to her 4 daughters, she also raised many foster children here.
People tell me, you know, your mom's house was everything to me. That's my first place that I had comfort, that I knew I felt safe, you know, has been, that part makes me sad. Yeah, to lose that.
About a mile away, their sister Ellen Williams lost her home as well. As she left it for the last time, her 2 neighbors' homes were burning, and she knew hers would be next.
That last look, when you look behind you as you're pulling out the driveway, and I was like, this is my house.
She never imagined she'd be unable to return to her home.
You think about the wedding photos, all my son's pictures when he grew up, my diplomas, my degrees, my, you know, all of that. It's just reduced to nothing.
Ishel went back to what was her home with her son, Braden, to survey the damage. It wasn't easy.
That was hard.
Papers saved from her doctorate were reduced to ashes. But in front of her neighbor's burned home, a little free library stood, undamaged. Inside, Ishel found a children's book she'd written about foster care. In its pages, a memory of the home she's lost, rendered by the illustrator.
This is what our house looks like. Last book all the way to the back, and something said, look for the book. And it's here. You can always get some more printed, but think this. I didn't take any of them with me.
The Williams family has set up 2 GoFundMe pages to help rebuild, already raising more than $30,000.
Southern California. I wanna be right there with you. It never rains in Southern California. There's nothing else I'd rather do. It never rains in Southern California. It never rains in Southern California. Now we may go on the east coast, on the other side of town. It never rains.
Not Catherine Massey's not Thursday. Context of White Supremacy. Saturday night. I'm black and I'm dangerous. The worthless Negro Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, January 18, 2025. So I have been told. I checked online. I was not able to locate. Basically, I found a handful, and I mean like maybe 3, 4 in total, other references ever in life online that got recorded maybe there's some other times that, didn't get written down or whatever, but of that phrase, it's Saturday night. I'm black and I'm dangerous. Whew. I'm using that anytime we broadcast for a Saturday. I'm going to see if I can make sure I get that in. Like, wow. When I heard it there, I said, the amount of Negro jargon that Dr. Maya Angelou captures in her memoir, The Heart of a Woman, is staggering. We're about halfway through the book. Stay black and die. As long as they black and they butts point down, I mean, she has got a rack of little Negro cliches and sayings and jargon. But I mean, buddy, I'm going to tell you, hey, it's Saturday night. I'm black. I'm dangerous. Watch it. Watch it. I said that only works talking to other colored folk, because I think if you say that to a white person, where is my rifle? Justified homicide, they call it. They'll shoot you 118 times and go, he said he was dangerous. I mean, good Lord, did he rape a white woman? Lord, he said he was dangerous. Well, he did say he was dangerous. Anyway, black and I'm dangerous. Compensatory call-in, the number 605-313-5164, the code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I don't know about you, but I know my heart rests a little easier, my spirit a little less weary. Boots the kitten, he survived the 2025 conflagration in Southern California. Can we get an amen on Boots the kitten that he survived the wildfire? I mean, I know we got a lot of folks who didn't make it and still a lot of folks who are missing, but I mean, man, world can't go on without Boots. No disrespect to anyone who has a feline pet or pets in general. I am vegan and I don't really do the pet thing, but right on. They had a lot of reports, just like with Hurricane Katrina, about white people stopping and we got to go rescue the horses and goats and dogs and Boots, presumably, and all the rest of the critters. I mean, man. Anyway, I cannot say enough, or I guess one, make sure I get this in before I forget. Number one, I heard a lot of chatter. One of the most famous, well-known Californians of all time, not Ronnie Reagan, the great Snoop Dogg. He is supposed to be a participant at the coming inauguration. Trump get 2 times. It was so nice I got to do it twice. 2-time President-elect Donald Trump getting ready to get back in the White House and kick old no-count skunk Biden. Get it, beat it. Kamala Harris, you too, beat it, get out of here. Get back in there and bring in Snoop to do a little entertainment for drop it like it's hot. We get back in the White House. The amount of name calling that I saw online, I mean, I didn't know what had happened. Like, what went on? Did he insult somebody in the wildfire? Like, what did he do? That no count Uncle Tom, boot licking coon, handkerchief head wearing Snoop to come out here and perform it. Oh, you shuffling no count coon and boy, they went to town on old Calvin Brodus. Wow, dang. And I said, wait a minute. Now, we are reading the autobiography and everything. That's it. Now, have some other black people performed at an inauguration before? I think there was a black person, not that long ago. Some of us were alive. There was a black person who performed, did a whole poem for Slick Willie. For Slick Willie. I know Arkansas roots. For Slick Willie. Hey, what I say last? What I say? Not all white people is racist. Slick Willie. But I do remember other black people performing at the, do they do that every time a black person says, I'm going to go and, kick it at the inauguration, regardless who's going, I'm going to go and get jiggy with it. They want me to sing a song, write a poem, whatever you want. Whatever. Sign me up. Let's go do it. I just don't remember that. I don't remember, did people castigate Dr. Angelo and Azalo? You got up there and supported that no count white dude, came out, super predator laws and all the rest of it. Don't you get me started on Hillary Clinton. Where is your black dignity? Did they do that to Dr. Angelo before she left, or even catch up with it before she passed away in 2014, like 2010, time Obeezy got in the White House? They didn't like how all that was shaken out when Hillary Clinton was jousting with him. Like, hey, we remember way back. You got any regrets about all that? You shouldn't have done all that. We shame about you doing that. That's a mark on your record. Did they do all that? I'm not saying they should have. I'm just saying, I've seen a lot of black people participate at these inaugurations, and I mean, you tell me, what's worse? Billy Clinton, come do a poem. Donald Trump, come sing a song. What's the difference? You have to tell me something. What's the difference? I'm not saying either worthy of ridicule. Make sure you get me. No, that's what I don't say. No name calling people who are classified as black unless they accept the wrong invitation to the inauguration. I don't say that. No name calling black people mean no name calling black people. So I'm not saying any of these folks should be ridiculed, criticized. I really don't care, to be truthful. See, get back to that election thing. See, man, they just come around. Even at the election is done. The election is done. We are moving forward like you already knew this was gonna happen. This is on a schedule. They brought one of the black fellas who helped when they had the January 6th mob of race soldiers, pistachios and reefer. They had Officer Goodman, I think is his name, unless my memory is being pecan-sized and niggardly. They had Officer Goodman come. He escorted Michelle Obama. I think Joe Biden was present, escorted them out, for the services and what have you. I'm not saying he should be ridiculed for that. I think they were trying to do that as a token of gratitude for his service and what have you. But I mean, Joe Biden says, I want you to come be a part of the inauguration. What's the difference? Suspected racist. Trump, suspected racist. Clinton, either the female or the male, take your pick. Suspected racist. So why? Come on. The anti-blackness, really. And I wouldn't care if Snoop came out before and says he wasn't going to do it and changed his mind. Like, what non-white person is going to lose a job, lose their house, be denied medical coverage, not be able to get a loaf of bread or a satchel of Brussels sprouts because SNOOP is going, I don't know what he is, 187 on the undercut. Man, I would tune in. What song is he going to do at the end? Do you cook up something special? Beautiful, he could do that one. Beautiful, put in a little remix word for Trump there. But I mean, what song? Is he sipping on gin and juice? Is it Dogs? What song exactly is he going to do at the White House? Anyway, have fun, be safe, my black brother. They moved it inside so he will be warm. Would it drop it like it's hot? Drop it like it's hot. They'll be inside and warm, so you do something cute, wear something cute. Man, Snoop is racking up. So he performed at the Super Bowl, at the Olympics, And then they'll probably have them at the Olympics in 4 years if LA hadn't burned down by then. And then you get to be at the inaugural. I mean, woo! You want to talk about racial show? Now see that, that's racial show. Now see, they don't get mad at the white people for you. Why did you bring Snoop out there and try and trick us and all the rest of it? They don't do that. It just becomes Snoop is a no count and we got to be name called and all the rest of it. That is legend. No name calling black people, even those who participate in the inauguration, if you are disgruntled about their, Jim Jones got to go to the inauguration. Jimmy Carter, man, come on, did that? You ain't black no more, Jim Jones. We don't appreciate you going down there rubbing elbows with Rosalind, and Rosalind isn't even a woman. That's Roger. We told you last week, see? Come on. Any hoodles. No name calling, and let me know. Now, if I missed that, did they name call Dr. Angelo? If they did, I'll retract and, get right. Let's see. The LA Sentinel. They have a page, and it's like right on the front of their website. The LA Sentinel is a black news publication for LA, Los Angeles, Southern California. Lots of great information about the wildfire, what's happening specifically to black Angelinos, and they have a link that has lots and lots. It looks like it might be hundreds of GoFundMe pages for black people exclusively. That's what it says. Who lost a house, business, whatever it is, residence, whatever it might be. But it's listed right there. I posted it online. I'll include it in the link for the description of this broadcast. But if you are interested, I know we have a number of COWS listeners in the California area, have for the duration of our time on the air, LA specifically. Feel free. And it's a lot of non-white people, black people in the greater Los Angeles area, period. I hope that's been evidenced in some of the information. We had a whole program this past Wednesday evening specifically examining all the different components of white supremacy racism around the wildfires, which are still ongoing. They have not been totally extinguished at this point, and certainly not letting people back in the houses and to go and examine and see, what's left and sift through the rubble and all the rest of it. Just terrible situation through and through. But LA Sentinel, check it out if you want to support or at least to share some of the links to help black people, specifically LA Sentinel. Okay, let's see. Things to share with the fire. I guess, number one, to even back up, the fire, I've included so much information, as I just said, one, because there are so many black people in LA. But again, I think I said this on the program Wednesday, going to California, I predicted would be a transformative experience, because I looked at the itinerary of, these are the things that I would like to do, if I'm able to go to the film festival and see all these amazing films and directors and all that. Check. Go to USC, screening there, check. Hit UCLA and Beach and San Francisco and Jonestown Memorial on the 18th, check. San Francisco Museum. Just wow, all of that, and so much I can't even list all, but able to do all of that. That should be transformative experience, to learn so much and see so much and experience so much, but to be in some of the very locations that actually caught on fire and that they're talking about right now all over the world. I went through and picked out some of the pictures that I had from Malibu Beach. Like, that is stunning. I think, if not these exact structures, very, very close to the structures that I took pictures of where I was sitting right there, have burned down. And I was looking exactly at some of these structures, if not, literally just a few meters down, and saying, climate change is going to take all of this. I had said that explicitly, and a big part of it and I wasn't even thinking of wildfires. Didn't enter my brain computer at all. I was exclusively focused on the sea level rise. That was most, right in your face, right in my face. And even the past 10 days, looking at these images and what have you, they've showed the houses burned down and the structures and all of that. You can see the tide right there in the photos. Right there. I mean, what I said that beach is so stingy. You can see exactly what I said. That beach is so stingy. If that tide comes up at all, this stuff is going to be out of here anyway. So, whatever. And I looked after Wednesday. I said, man, some of these folks, it seems like they are in the double whammy area. They're in an area that is vulnerable to wildfires. Check. Case in point. And vulnerable to sea level rise. Whew. And that is the case for Malibu, where I was. In fact, they have local meetings, right, for the people who live there. You don't just get to go and talk about, crime and, everybody got to cut their grass and don't have any unruly colors painted on the side of your house or anything like that. You got to go and have meetings about sea level rise. Often, what we gonna do? And I told you, the road, Pacific Highway, is right there. In some, I looked and they said they predict by 2100, which is 80 years or 75 years, they predict that sea level rise will be plus 6.5 feet. That's over 2 meters if my international math is accurate. 6.5 feet. So unless you're the height of Victor Wembanyama, LeBron James, maybe. I mean, that's about a cheer for. It's going to be tough breathing even for LeBron. You'd have to be like Magic Johnson. He's about 6'9". You'd have to be Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That'd be 7 feet. Shaquille O'Neal size. Where 6.5, I'm still good. My head is above water. I can breathe. I'm good. For everybody else, you can't be on the beach. And if it comes up that much, all those houses are done. If it comes up that much, the road is in question. You'd have to do some things like, whoa, what? That's why I said you got to go to those meetings. Then you also got to go to the wildfire meeting and the water meetings. You got drought problems, right? Man, the expense of living in California. It's not just the, real estate and property and all that, and insurance. The expense, meaning the time and energy. Now, how many times are we going to have to evacuate? How many times is our property going to burn down? Sea level rise. All of that. The expense of living, particularly Southern California. Whew, man, just that alone. This, you should keep in mind, the Olympics are supposed to be in California in 2028. I said this past summer when it was still in Paris, racial dislocation. Niggers, pack your belongings and get the stepping. Sacramento, I don't care. El Segundo, I don't care where you go, but get up out of here. We need all of this. This being probably LA County. El Segundo might not even be far enough. You might beat it. Sacramento, Ukiah, I don't know, but out of here. We're going to need all of that. Victor Wembanyama just said, man, we need all of this. We need all this. Racial dislocation. Getting the Negroes out of here. And this, they have already had articles. You heard some of that in the clips saying they think this is going to disrupt housing for the entire state of California because so many people, their housing got disrupted. And so they're going to be dispersed not just throughout LA, but probably throughout California and maybe even beyond. Probably have a lot of people who can't even afford to stay here anymore. And then the Olympics is coming. Can't even afford to stay here anymore. Could be just like New Orleans, where a substantial number of black people no longer live in LA. You can mark this event specifically. And as they said in Altadena, I didn't know this, about 20% individuals classified as black in this area. A lot of them homeowners. And they talked about that even being a result of white supremacy racism. And I thought, now that is no surprise at all, where you would have a cluster of black people who own homes, property. It would be in the area that is, hey, y'all got the Satan's winds that come through here, and ooh, we dropping insurance policies. We heard some of that for the Williams family in there, and some of the other folks. Oh, these reports did have video with them, some of them. So like all the people that you heard at the end, when I say the end, like the reports when they started talking about rebuilding for black Altadena, obviously that was all black people. The report about the missing, a number of the people that are still missing, these were black people, some of them elder black people. We got to that final report and they were talking about the Williams family, that they lost all of their houses because they lived close together, but they didn't lose any family members. All black people. Rodney Nickerson, we talked about him on Wednesday, in his 80s, black male, and it was a lot of that. Gentleman who stayed with his son, didn't want to leave behind all black people. It was a lot of black people impacted by this through and through, but the racial dislocation probably be felt throughout the state, where you have way fewer black people who live in Los Angeles. And like I said, white people, they know we'll allow a little cluster of black people. We'll let a few of them get over there in the houses and, you know, whatever. 1, 2, 3 wildfires come through and maybe the insurance pays out, maybe they don't, and that'll be that. They said white people, the vultures, they had been trying anyway. They said since they haven't even got the fires out, they said people have been calling from all over as far as Connecticut. We'll take that house off your hands. We'll take it off your hands. We'll take it off your hands. We'll take it off your hands. We read this, Katrina. No surprise, right? Let's see. The few details I want to make sure I get to before. Actually, if I can pause 1 second, one non-California detail. I guess I did talk about the inauguration, even though Snoop is in that report. That's not really California related. So one other bit of non-California news. I saw a black person give a talk about racism, which I'm never excited about for the most part. Never excited about. I don't have high expectations. I expect that they'll be confused. Who is more informed about white supremacy racism? People classified as white. Duh. But want to be supportive and just, you know, curious, see, you know, what they're going to be talking about, all that. So I go see this black person, and it wasn't going to last too long. That was the other thing. It's like, oh, okay, I can go see this really quick and then get the rest of my Saturday work program, all that. So go hear this black person, and at times it was, I'm pausing because I was going to say painful, but given what we heard about Los Angeles, like, wow, Boots the Cat and Mr. Nickerson and like all the rest, like, I can't hear all that and then say, oh man, it was painful listening to this black brother today. Like, got to pick a different words. It was unpleasant, I'll say. Very unpleasant at times, often. Listening, victims guaranteed qualified. I'm sure people say that about me often. People do say that about me often, and have for years. But specifically, and the nature of my discomfort was black people, non-white people in total, victims of white supremacy at large. We are confused about white supremacy racism, and then we are very cowardly. And that is the result of terrorism. White supremacy, racism, master form of terrorism. But that's the result, to make people fearful. Why do you lynch a black male, chop off his genitals, and leave the body up for a week, 4 or 5 days? What is the point? Make everybody fearful. We've even talked about that, where they killed Patrice Lumumba, or they lynch a black male in Monroe, Louisiana, 1930s, near Bill Russell's so-called family. And you all had better not talk about this. We'll come and burn down this whole property. You won't have no wind to blame on it or nothing. And that'll be the shh. Keep quiet. So that's the result. You end up with people who are cowardly about addressing white supremacy, racism, because white people could kill you, myself included. They're scary. But the result, this victim I'm listening to, he's talking about going to Oregon, right south of here, and he said he went there. He said being there and not seeing other people who look like me, I have a lot of history being in that space, and many other people who look like me. It's difficult to be in that space, and that's the way that he talked. That's the way, like, literally, that's not mocking. I was trying to do an earnest representation of his response to being in Oregon, and that phrase, people who don't look like us. Boots the cat can come and scratch my eyeballs out and kick me in the genitals. Woo! You talk about a phrase what are you talking about? Do you mean the system of white supremacy, racism? Do you mean it was in the Oregon State Constitution, no niggers? Is that what you mean? People who don't, oh God, that's what I mean. It was, I can't say painful because California, that's painful. Riding dick, that's painful. It was unpleasant. And that's why I said it comes back to, because, and he even said, how do you do this work and try to talk about racism without making others uncomfortable? You can't upset white people. And not all white people is racist. See, you gotta just, man, if that is going to govern our thought, speech, and action, especially with regards to how we address white supremacy, racism, we are going to remain in the pitiful state that we are in right now, name calling SNOOP. Boots the cat is safe. We're going to lynch SNOOP. Anyway, victims guaranteed qualified. VGQ, he said what he said. I didn't throw no rotten tomatoes or eggs or call him no names either. I sat courteously and listened. Now, he continued, and he said, with affinity, almost black and I'm proud. He said, in fact, I'd have been more appreciative. He said, you know what? It's Saturday afternoon. Black and I'm dangerous. Boy, the black brother. Black brother. That's my black brother. He didn't say that, though. He said, black culture is part of what I do. And black culture is synthetic hair and braiding. I can't say painful. It was unpleasant. Very. Victims guaranteed qualified. Now, once again, I'm not with all the black culture and all that. She said that, but she said, all I got to do is stay black and die. I said, if I ever find the list, what exactly is required of one to quote unquote stay black? If I ever find out what's on that list, I'm not doing none of that. And I'm disassociating with everybody who engages in any of those activities. He said, black culture. I listen. What's he gonna say? What are you gonna say? He gonna say, let's see. He go, Dr. King Monday. When he gonna say Dr. King, that'd be a good one. I'll take that. No, he didn't say that. No. Patrice Lumumba, that'd be a good. I'd take that. No. Dr. Maya Angelou, I'd take no. Replace white supremacy with justice. Stop smoking crack, Gus. You're right. He said synthetic hair and braiding, and I think that's the order. It was synthetic hair first and braiding. Victims guaranteed qualified. And I'll even be honest, I winced and I felt a little Dr. Wellsing. Ain't got no manhood. Dr. Angelo's son, he said every other day, I'm a man. Man, she got him the book title, Heart of a Woman. Nope. Boys and gals, that's all we got. But to have a black male, his affinity for synthetic hair and braiding. No disrespect to any black males who braid hair. If you have offspring, daughters, maybe non-Clemson dad, you can braid your child's hair. A plus. I'm a worthless Negro. I can't braid no hair. Ain't got no children, so I'm not saying. But he didn't talk about braiding his child's hair. He didn't have no images of him braiding his child's hair. This was all just for abstract appreciation of Negro culture. Victims guaranteed qualified. And then he even waxed like pseudoscientifically about the connections of black people and sharing time. And do other people braid hair? Do other people who are not black, do they do each other's hair? Jesus Christ. I mean, for real. I have to strain not to curse. Like, I'm so insulted. If that's what we're supposed to come out and the Negro History Month, if that's what Dr. Carter G. Woodson made Negro History Month for us to come out and I'm black and proud because we braid hair, get the F away from me with all of that. That's what I mean. Black culture, I could throw up. Are you serious? In a system of white supremacy racism, black culture is any answer other than black culture is replacing white supremacy with justice immediately. Any other answer? Can I say some bullshit? Why we're pitiful? Can I say that? Any other answer? Everything else I hear is some bullshit. Like, oh my God, that is exactly why I do not get down with black people at all. Yeah, we're victims, but y'all have to get over there. I'm in Seattle. I say that all the time, man. I lived in Atlanta. I would lose my mind if you put me. We gonna celebrate. Oh, I could die. They're having wildfires in California that are killing black people right now. We got to stop. It was not even braiding first. It was synthetic hair first. Why you need synthetic? We got to get rid of them naps. That's why you need the synthetic hair. Am I wrong? Why you need the synthetic hair? I know white people wear wigs and all that. I ain't never, ever heard no white people get out and say white culture is fake hair. White culture is racism. They don't say that either, but the lies are immense. They don't say fake hair. And even if they did, that ain't nothing to emulate. Oh, I could throw up. I feel like throwing up every time when I hear somebody get on that. Black culture, if it ain't, replace white supremacy with justice. It's a win for white people. And they were pleased. The white people applauded. It's great. Now, this victim did include. He used math to make designs with the braids and such. VGQ. Incidentally, he depicted a white man lounging comfortably on his weaves, synthetic weaves. Victims Guarantee qualified on that too. And even that was where he commented about, "Ooh, you can't make the white man too uncomfortable. You're gonna come and lie on your synthetic weave." BS. Anyway, Victims Guaranteed qualified. Whatever. Anyway, he did mention the math needed to make all this, and a black person in the audience talked about it, appreciated, black and I'm proud, and Africa, and that's we got all the hair braiding, and y'all are gonna kill me, y'all are gonna kill me. And he said, I do want to add the math that is African too, and that didn't make it no better for me. Nobody even comes out and says being black is being a scientist. And he didn't say that. He just said the math. I guess sometimes the pyramids or whatever, but I mean, that's replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Oh, I do not kick it with people classified as black. I am not with the black culture stuff. Oof. 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 Stuff will kill you. Now, hey, Saturday night, told you, black and I'm dangerous. Now, let's see. The reports that we did hear, I did also include the report about the black people in the mining shaft in South Africa. We are reading about the Congo, not South Africa, but I do think that is massively, and they said it was a gold mine. Woo! I do think, isn't Valentine's Day coming up? You do chocolates, you got to get a gold bracelet. That is something worthy of, just remembering from time to time. Where all that gold go? Oh, yeah, just like the Congo. All emaciated and delectable Negro, you can't even get no food, all starving. Now, again, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with no African, pretend black people. Cool in the gang. I do contend white people, it does seem like they make this kind of niggers as niggers, but, hey. I did think that was worthy of paying attention to as well, southern part of the continent. The reports about the one drink, just again now, they said 1 drink per week, anything above is carcinogenic. They were pretty explicit. I didn't think there was a lot of ambiguity about that. I know everyone doesn't agree, but it seemed pretty straightforward, and I haven't heard anyone say that the science was lame or questionable or they lied. Now, it still bounces, but well, maybe we do 1 a day. They even made up a term. They said sober-ish. What does that? If you get stopped by the enforcement officer, the man with a badge, he pulls you over, got the lights, nigger knocker, and he says, "Hey, fella, you been drinking?" Oh, what you mean, officer? I'm sober-ish. They let you take off on down the road? Come on, man. Come on. That right there, in fact, I didn't even really have to listen to the report in that much detail. I just told you now. You can say all that. They are selling liquor at the college sporting events. College. Traditionally aged white college students are not of drinking age until their senior year. So, presumably, about half, maybe more, of the college students at these games, they are not of legal drinking age. But, whatever. We selling liquor, hard liquor, all of that right there. They used to not even allow all that liquor and stuff in the stadium or on the property, on the premises or whatever. Now you're selling it in the stadium, sometimes with the university's brand on it. And you got all this binge drinking on the campuses. Like, which is it? Are you trying to discourage drinking or are we promoting the drink? Which is it? Come on. And then, hey, you got now You just had New Year's Day where they said, we got to get my champagne on, celebrate, bring the ball down, all that. Okay, thrive for 2025. And now we got playoff football. It's not just the regular brain damage. This is the for real brain damage. We did all this knocking people around for 3-4 months. Now we go and beat each other in the brain to see who get that gold championship. All them brothers and sisters died in the mine. Okay, get out here. We're going to do the for real playoff jump on somebody football damage about all this. We got to drink 2, 3, 4 shots. I told you last week, hey, Super Bowl, we got to get tore down. I don't care which teams are playing in the big game. So you got, and then I forgot the college. How I forget Ohio State, my man Jeff Dahmer, Sue Klebo University, the most famous alums in the world, Monday night. So you got 3 consecutive days to drink hard. They're going to have happy hour and specials and get together in big white crowd. Yeah. Go Buckeyes, Jeff Dahmer, woo! And give me 3-4 shot. We play the beer pong and 3-4 day. Be drunk on Tuesday. And then you continue that all the way to Super Bowl. And it's, well, sober. I didn't even hear dry January. They didn't even talk. They didn't even try and pretend like, yeah, they would talk about drink less. We're gonna try and be healthy. The wildfires stress me. They're gonna pour a little bit out for California. Yeah, it's been stressful. Yeah. That right, the system of white. Nothing about this is designed to be healthy. Let's see. We got and then obviously lots of different reports about situation in Los Angeles. I will add quickly, they talked about getting the funding for housing in Kansas City. That was actually Kansas City, Missouri, even though I had the clip of Mr. Fuller talking about Kansas City, Kansas. But they're like next door, super, super close. But I do get it. Kansas is not Missouri. The Los Angeles, there's so much to say about all of that, again, impacting lots of black people, lots of non-white people, and probably throughout the state of California, not just in the greater LA area, what have you, and on many levels. I talked about the poisonous air a few days ago. You heard some in the clips about that today. That's probably going to have an impact. 150-mile radius. San Diego, they were talking about concerns about air quality and such, and all that poison drifting down from Los Angeles. San Diego is about 120 miles from LA approximately. So on that level, I talked about the rent, all the rest of it, talked about the refugees from LA ended up who knows where throughout the U.S. in a myriad of ways. The impact of all of this acutely for folks, I would think on the West Coast, I would pay attention to all of this because it could be a lot more. When they talk about, there are reports that talk about so-called climate change and how shifting temperatures and having more of these extreme weather events. I would say this is one because certainly the drought in the area helped fuel this. There are going to be more of these types of events, maybe even more of this specific type of event, these type of wildfires in California. But they have said consistently the people that are going to be most impacted are dark people. I say this, I am for sure there are white people they knew years ago. I played that documentary. The LA Fire Department has documentary footage from like 60 years ago. It's over 60 years ago. Satan's Winds, talking about this exact location. This happens all the time. White people know this happens every year. They know the exact time of year. You can predict it. They got almanacs that together. Oh yeah, it happened. This has been going on for decades, centuries it seems. And they know what I said. Weather patterns are getting worse. We'll make sure we put them niggers up there, and we'll come down, safer area, blah blah blah. We'll just stick the niggers up there. For sure, white people lost their houses and all that in this, but as you heard in the report, you do have a substantial number of white people in a way better position. Private insurance and private firefighters. And I had never even heard of such a thing. They said Kanye West and Kim Kardashian had to do what? What? I don't remember reading nothing about that. As many times they the name called Kanye West for this. I don't remember nothing about him having his own private firefighter. Like, wow. Go ahead, Mr. Ye, go ahead. But I suspect most of the other black people that we heard, they did not follow Ye's lead and have an army of firefighters. But I've heard this before. In New Orleans, white people, army of private armed security. They didn't have fire need back then. They just needed bullets. This time, the private fire personnel come, tape up the vents, make sure clean up the yard, no debris that might brush, that might, incinerate and catch a fire, things of that. Wow. If they have a few extra seconds, maybe we'll hop to your yard or whatever. You better hope that California Fair insurance policy, the last resort policy, you better hope that they look out for you. And they already said, look like they might run out of nickels. So, they had people that, I told you, they'd already went in and told them before this fire that, this area, y'all gonna have something like this happen sooner or later, so we're not even covering all this. Good luck. White people, they got reports on this too. White people in a way better position. Even if that's the case, white person uninsured, black person uninsured, the white people are in a way better position. Like when you heard them talking about the West Side Waldorf School, now that was audio. They didn't have video of that. You can go look at pictures. Who's at the West Side Waldorf School? It is not SNOOP. Doesn't look like his cousins hanging out there. Nothing like that. If Calvin Brodus, any of his little nephews, nieces, if they are enrolled in there, my bad, Snoop. But from the pictures I saw, that does not seem to be the case. They said we are, what's that R word? Not racist, resilient. We know people. We got friends who got property, so looking at different satellite school options and all that. I ain't heard nothing like that. It's black people who had academies and schools and what have you. I haven't heard nothing about them saying, oh man, we got wealthy friends and we hobnob with Denzel and all these other black actors and what have you that kick it out here, and Magic Johnson. I got him on my speed dial. What you talking about, man? Me and Kobe was kicking it for the championship in 2010, man. Psh, we got property and all. We'll be rolling by Black History Month. This will be a sad memory that we have moved on to, but I didn't hear nothing like that. White people are. That's why I said it's probably no coincidence. We know this. We'll stick the niggers over there. And then we'll have fewer niggers when this does happen. Racial dislocation, which we were going to do anyway. We getting ready for the Olympics. Come on, Biles. Woo! Let's see. They did when they talked about the toxicity and the layers of they were talking about this stuff getting in the water, and this stuff means so all of these whole house burns down. You can think of all the synthetic. I didn't even think all of the ammunition that white people have. California is AR-15 land, and I mean that's where they invented the AR-15, and Southern California at that. This is AR-15 gun land. All of that ammunition blowing up in there, and cars burned down, and all that rubber and everything, all of that toxicity, plastic, lead paint, asbestos, all of that is now in the air, vaporized. That gets in the water, gets in your lungs. All the other surfaces gets in the, oh my God. They said they might not even know the impact for decades. It might be something like the World Trade Center where they come and find out like a decade later, like, oh my God, all these people, we got cases of pneumonia and lung cancer and oh my God, the wildfires, sickness and that sort of thing. That's another one. Cost of living in Los Angeles. You got to have the highest quality filters, and they don't even have filters in LA right now, so you have to go online, barter, sell a kidney. High cost of living to be in Los Angeles, just so you can maybe see Denzel every other day, maybe Kendrick Lamar. Snoop rides by so you can call him a coon. I don't know, man. I don't know. But they pulled on the professor of pediatrics from where they didn't go to UCLA. They didn't go to USC. Right there, they went to Stanford. talk about how all this impacts children specifically, I have been reminded through all of this, the number one reason that children miss school in the U.S. is asthma. I know black people who live in Los Angeles who have asthma. They've been complaining about their lungs boiling for days, not even just a one-time acute boiling, like lungs boiling for days. I said Raphael Sadiq need to have the climate change edition of It Never Rains. Nothing to brag about. It never rains. He can make it kind of a soulful, melancholy song. It never rains. Plane might get there or not. I don't know, because sometimes they have the wildfires, so they got to divert flights. Then they got all that smoke and ash in the air. Maybe we can land, maybe we can't. I don't know. But it never rains. Besides, you have to make that kind of jazzy, but it's a hit, man. I'm telling you, you can do it. Do it after I keep saying you get the torch in the background. Well, they can't even do the torch. Man, we're going to have to do like a hologram for the torch in 2028. They'll have enough time to figure that. If we burn the whole stadium down, like, woo, so they get the hologram. But you get Raphael Sadiq, you do that for the closing ceremony. Whew, climate change it, man. Just let me sit. Well, never mind. I'll watch it on TV. I don't want to be Southern. Yeah, I'll watch it on TV. Just give me your credit. Shout out. Appreciate it. Raphael Sadiq. Let's see. The insurance, last thing I'll get in, the Luigi Mangione, the white Stanford assassin, just gunned down Brian Thompson, white racist suspect insurance CEO, and had all those white people gleeful. Woo, right on, that's what you get. Celebrating it. OMG. Now, people in California, they get mad, the insurance companies get sassy, and we're not covering. You didn't have coverage for this. That's not what your policy says and all that. Ooh-wee. Mr. Mangione, we got a list for you. What you think, brother? You're going to need some coins for that defense. We got a list of folks who need to get up out of here, so we get some defense coins for you. You know, we come to the trial, see if we can get you out, and then because they didn't do right by it. They didn't make us whole, so yeah, they got to get got. Come on, seen this before too. After Hurricane Katrina, where and they already said we think this is gonna be the costliest disaster in the history of California, where they have earthquakes and all kinds of natural disasters all the time. Wow. All that expensive beachfront property? Woo! We shall see. Again, I was saying this beforehand. Like, man, I love California, the non-LA parts. See? Right? Snoop and them, they got a hard life to live and die in LA. You had better believe it. Imagine you're a black person in LA, you got to work outside and you can't afford an air filter because they can be pricey to get a good one. You get a do-it-yourself fan or whatever, but I mean, black person, you can't afford a good mask because you got to get the N95. You can't get one. Just like COVID times, remember, everybody can't get PPP, personal protective, or it's PPE, excuse me. Everybody can't get the personal protective equipment. You got to be the lungs boiling, got asthma or whatever, respiratory issue. Gee, man, come on. Anyway, the number 605-313-5164, the code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I know we do have listeners in the California area. You can let us know if you, I don't know if you are close to LA, like what your experience is. We heard from Z's mom. She was talking about reports from her sister, but we have folks in the Southern California area, I guess. Let us know what your experience. If you catch the archives, you can write in untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. And let us know what your experience, what you've seen, research, all that, what you've heard from other people. That would be good to record. Let's see. Folks who dialed in, *61, if they have commentary to share. Let's see. A moment to find the switchboard, and we will get to it. Let's see. Caller down in Georgia should be with us. Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm glad, hopefully everyone's having a great evening. Thank you for taking my call. I thought someone else would be earlier. These were very insightful clips reminding me that I need to keep a better track of what's going on in the world. Because that's South Africa. Of course I believe it happened, but I don't know how naive I still am about certain things. And when he said $620,000, and I'm thinking, well, what's the South African, exchange? But their currency is called rand. So when he said dollars, I'm like, okay, this is U.S. dollars. That's all it takes to save someone's life, people's lives. And I read somewhere there were 400, or even during the presentation, 100 died, 400, they think it's still down there. I saw an article that says 78 pulled out. Let's be generous. Let's say there's 620 people involved. That's $1,000 per person. You really, how evil can you be? $1,000 per person, and you can get them out? When you think about it in those type of terms, even the $620,000, I've heard U.S. fines for things being millions of dollars, and people. I'm going to say white people because I believe that's who are on the mind. Are the greediness knows no bounds. I just don't know what to say about that. We talk about the insurance. They can't get insurance, and what's going to happen, and it's already happening every time these hurt natural disasters, human-made disasters, whatever. Everyone's insurance across the board goes up, because if they're not insuring in California, they're going to raise your rates in Alabama, Georgia, Arizona, New York, wherever else you are. Like I called to ask about my insurance one time. I'm like, why is it so much? I'm like, I don't go anywhere. I drive like 10 miles a week, and that's generous. And most of those miles are from church. and I work from home too. Why is my mileage? Why is my rate so high? Oh, this is going up, and some stupid excuses they gave me. And I tried to shop around one time for better home insurance. They told me $7,000. I go, are you crazy? I'm like, no, I'm good, thank you. I'm just gonna stick with what I had. So if you're gonna get a home, you're gonna get a car. Most places you need homes. I'm sure even renters insurance is going up and all those type of things. So, when these things happen, I know, yes, the lives are the most important. And you think, oh, those poor people out there, and that's true. We want black people to be alive. We want them to do well, and if we can't help, we should. But these things do affect us too. And when I was listening to the clips, I did go back. I said, well, let me check on Flint. I haven't done that in a while. And I guess there's a lady, she was featured in one of the PBS specials or whatever. She passed away. Her family is suing because she got legionnaires because of the water. So there's still effects to that. There's so many things, that continue to affect black people all over, and we need to, know about it. And if we can do more, just knowing about it, of course, is important. But even in our little areas, if we can do more, then we need to try to do, I believe, as much as we can. And, you know, these clips are very heartbreaking. Sometimes we just get angry, but, you know, this is a heartbreaking time for Black people. I mean, I know it always is, but especially, you know, we know they own their own homes, they made lives and families, and I guess, you know, the phrase attempted families really is coming to play now, because the family they made, you know, the memories, well, they should still have the memories, but, you know, those lives are lost. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Much obliged, caller in Georgia. Hey, I'm inspired by Dr. Welsing, Mr. Fuller, Dr. Cambon, Dick Gregory, the late. They all said, practiced, be informed on a global level. White supremacy, racism is a global system. Minister Malcolm X had him in the audio clips today. Global system, so we should, you know, try to pay attention to things that are happening on the planet. Flint to Johannesburg. White people are up to no good, and keeping Black people from having water from Flint to Johannesburg. You can put California in there too. So yes, I do think it is very important to try to be informed, and we try to do our part here at the cows. She said I'm going to say the white people own the mines in South Africa. No, I don't think Madiba and Winnie Mandela have taken over the mines. I don't think their cousins and nieces are calling the shots and getting all the proceeds and goodies from the mines. I don't think that is. I haven't been to South Africa, but I don't think that is so. And we did have Rihad Desai as a guest on the program, non-white filmmaker. He did the documentary film Miners Shot Down. That was 2012. They had the strike. Lots of Black people, miners, shot and killed. Same situation, trying to get better living conditions. That was South Africa way back when, ancient history, way back when. Also, she reminded me with regards to water, when she brought up Flint, which really could have been California or South Africa, wherever, and Black people not having access to water or getting poisoned because of the water and how it's compromised their health. It reminded me there was a big kerfuffle in California over the past 10 days with the fire. They didn't have enough water. The fire hydrants lost pressure, and it's Governor Gavin Newsom's fault, or someone's to blame. Why didn't we have more water? All of this. It reminded me, the Washington Post had an article, this is from 2015, and I did a YouTube video about this because this was just like a couple weeks. There was a young teenage Black girl. She was slammed by a white officer at a pool party in Texas. And I did a short YouTube video about the long, trifling history of racism at pools and just white people denying Black people access to water. And they had an article in the Washington Post. The article is titled, Rich Californians. That would be another one where I think they're talking about white people. Rich Californians balk at limits, and it says in quotes, we're not all equal when it comes to water. I used the picture for this image in the video on YouTube that I made, which is still there, you can check it out. But I used the picture because they had a picture of a white person with a big California pool at one of those expensive houses that could have burned down in Malibu. Big pool, and I think the dog was even jumping in the pool. I have to go and look again. It wasn't Boots, the kitten. It was Fifi or whatever, the canine. But they had the pool. Man, I paid the water taxes and all that, and I got my pool, and, you know, whatever. We're not all equal when it comes to water. That's what they said, 2015. And so now we get here to, hey, why don't we have water? And, well, hey, we already told you. I'm going to fill up my pool if I want to, you know, sharing water, whatever. And they had the golf courses in there too, because you're going to have green grass, and especially in drought California, you're going to need some water. So, you know. But I did remember that. And I didn't hear nary a mention of that at no time over the last 10 days that, oh yeah, you had rich white people in California who already said, I'm not sharing no water. Raphael Sadi, you put that in the climate change, man. It never rains. Just put that article up in the background. It never rains in Southern California. Non-Clemson dad, Double O Dimples with us as well. Star 61. Other folks have commentary to share.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good day to the best of their ability. I just have a couple of things to comment on. Most of it is in relation to that wildfire happening in Los Angeles right now. It's very unfortunate, and of course it's still going, and I don't think they have an estimate for when they think they will even get the fires out right now. Nevertheless, there were a couple of policy things that caught my attention that didn't get mentioned in tertiary in relation to the fire. People in California who live in California probably know about this, Proposition 13, which is a state law which reduced the tax revenue for people who own property in California. So, for example, imagine two similarly situated properties with houses on them. With Proposition 13, if you lived and owned your property already, basically your taxes are flattened so that, for example, no matter how long you've been there, no matter how much your house is worth, your taxes, for example, if you have like a $5 million house, maybe you're paying like $2,000. But people who might come and buy property after Proposition 13 went into effect, they would have to pay the evaluation on taxes based on the value of the house after Proposition 13 went into effect. So you could easily have a person living right next to another where both houses, let's say they were the same, and one person is paying maybe $2,000 in taxes compared to the person who has a higher valuation, even though the properties might look similar, might be paying like $20,000. What this does in effect is that, for example, that was tax revenue that was not collected from those pre-existing properties that could have went to paying potential firefighters. So, I think one of the big complaints from the now fired Los Angeles police firefighter chief is that she didn't have enough people or personnel to fight these fires. And I believe that was complaining about it, I think, got her fired. But there was also another way to pay them, and this is ironic because along with the fire department getting their salary, their budget slashed, I believe they also the LA police got a raise in their budget. Let's see, building housing in inappropriate locations. So LA, as it continues to sprawl out and expand, keeps building housing in places that are really susceptible to all these fires. And this is not the only place, of course, in the country that this is happening. It might just be a different type of situation. So, for example, where I live here in South Carolina, there are people who live in the surrounding mountains as well, too. And, of course, you remember towards the end of September, there was the hurricane. And as a result, one of the things that happened, along with the power going out and a little bit of flooding, was that there was also mudslides for people's properties that were located in the mountains. There is a bad habit of allowing people, especially rich people, to decide to build their housing in places that are just not really easily insurable because they're susceptible to natural disasters like mudslides or flooding or, clearly in the case of LA, fires. And, of course, the stories of insurance companies pulling out of the California, that's happening in multiple states. I think the one I was hearing before that was probably the state of Florida because of all the hurricanes. But depending on where you might find yourself inside the country, you're probably, experiencing these types of other weather phenomena as well, too. Hurricanes, flooding, fires, depending on where you might find yourself. And I imagine there's going to be other states that are finally, where they have insurance companies also pulling out. And I would imagine the next closest state is probably Texas. Houston, which I believe is like the third or fourth biggest city in the entire country, is constantly getting hit with hurricanes. So don't be shocked when more insurance companies start pulling out of those areas. And then the last thing on my list is, if anyone's ever heard of the phrase exclusionary zoning, at least to me, what this reveals is the really, really big disconnect between exclusionary zoning and tax policy. And what I mean by that is, for example, we have something called Euclidean zoning, which means that land uses are separated from each other, which means that if something is zoned for residential, that means you only find single-family housing, or you'll find only commercial, or you'll find only industrial, etc. And the thing about this is that besides the fact that it creates sprawl as a result, one of the issues is that when you lock things into a certain way of existing, for example, single-family housing, which usually tends up to take up usually 60 to 80% of a whole city or county, depending on where you are, those places are unable to adapt to people's needs and changes in their own family life. So imagine you live in a situation where you have a single-family home and maybe you even own the property outright, but the taxes that you own the property go up, right? Because of more demand for the area or multiple other reasons that could happen. One of the ways of coping with that is being allowed to change your property to be more valuable. So, for example, if you have a single-family home, can you transform it into a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex, which means 4 units? And the benefit of that is that, for example, if you have elderly people who may own those properties, they could subdivide their property to allow for more units, to allow family members to move in to help split the cost, or maybe rent it out to people who might need housing. But instead, what we have is a situation where only single-family housing is allowed, and because that's the only thing that's allowed, you got to use up more land, and then they start eating into those outlying areas and become susceptible to things like fires. And with that, I will mute my line.
Susceptible, much obliged, non-Clemson dad. Susceptible, building in these places that are dangerous and unsafe, susceptible to fires, mudslides. They have a specific house. They had a big picture in the LA Times of a property in LA. It survived the wildfires untouched in the area where lots of houses were razed, but there was a mudslide afterwards, split the house in half. They were stunned. Like, what? You go through all that, survive the fire, only to have the mudslide. And he said because all of the drought that they've had, then when you do get some rain, now you could get the double whammy with threat of mudslide. So yes, the area, lots of sprawl in California, and lots of properties, in some cases built in regions that are dangerous. Some of them, they may not necessarily have been dangerous 50, 60 years ago, although again, they have been calling it Santa Ana winds for a very long time, area prone to wildfires. But that said, that is what it is now. It is very important being aware, checking the news so you'll know when there is a threat, danger, but just being mindful of what's happening in that area so you know the risks that you'll have to deal with to be in the region. With all of the, I guess, single family units, but seem like a lot of that is to make sure we don't have lots of non-white people. In fact, even I was going back and thinking of what he was talking about with California with Proposition 13, where he said they're cheating out the tax base, where you have these folks who've had their properties and they were already here before the proposition. Your tax base kind of plateaus and you just kind of pay whatever your measly property tax is. Whereas if you come and you snatch up a property after this, you got to pay whatever the market value is. So you could have, as he said, 2 properties that are right there, right next to each other, and you pay, I think he said, but you pay maybe $2,000 for your property, and we'll say they're both about the same, 4 bedrooms, and your taxes are going to be $30,000. And it's about the same property, same location, all that. Like, what the? And he said that was a part of the kerfuffle with the firefighters not being able to be paid enough money, that they're finding different ways of cheating out their own tax base. Is there any, like, folks saying, well, you got elders, older people who they don't have that income anymore to pay that robust property tax, and we don't want to put them out in the cold or, make them sell their property just because they're old and retired. They should be able to ride out their golden years and stay in their property. You don't think that's a reasonable stipulation to put in and look out for folks who've already been there and been paying property taxes for all that time?
That is a very good question. Interestingly enough, me and my wife diverge on the reasonableness of that policy. So, for example, that idea that when someone reaches retirement age, they should get a discount on their taxes because their income is plateauing. Reduce their taxes. I personally think this is bad policy because the thing about even though someone is retired, the thing is that they still expect these government services from the firefighters to the police, whatever services that they might need for whatever reason, and simply reducing their tax requirement because you're trying to keep them in the house doesn't account for the fact that, for example, utilities still go to their house. Like if you pay, let's say, $1,000 in taxes per year for your property, and then you reach retirement, and then you get what is called a homestead exemption usually, at least that's what it's called where I live, and now you pay only $300 in taxes, you don't reduce the amount of services that you potentially consume, and you definitely don't reduce the utilities. You're still using the water, the sewage, the electricity, the internet, all the things that come with all the utilities that come with servicing your property. That's why it's bad tax policy. A better way of dealing with that is that, for example, allowing the property itself to change to produce more money. So if you have a single-family home and someone's retired, can they allow someone to subdivide their property to allow, family members or renters to come onto their property to help bring them income while allowing their property to produce enough money to pay for the regular taxes? Because, again, the utilities that go to the property are not reduced.
Have to ponder. That is very reasonable. Certainly, they still use all the same utilities, and if a blaze is afoot, they're going to pick up and dial 911 and all that. So, yeah, that's reasonable. I have to think about that. I guess I am having to think too that this is probably something because white people have kind of rigged the system where they have lots of ways where they are not paying taxes. Like just from what I've heard from, I know there are black property owners in Altadena. I'm very aware of this, quite a few of them. The way this would go, I suspect it would be lots of white people who would benefit from this. We have had this property for X amount of, or maybe even got passed down. It's been 3-4 generations in the family or whatever, but we've had this property for a long time, and they rig lots of different laws and things of that nature where they do not pay, what do they call, pay your share. They do not pay their share into public services and then whine and gripe when the public services are waning and don't have funds, when they have done all of these deceptive ways and laws and everything schemes to make sure that they do not, particularly when seems like it might be a growing number of non-white people who would benefit from these public services. But that would be, I just heard about Proposition 13, so I'm not an expert. I'm still learning. I would, that is kind of rough. Like if I was an old non-white person, like if I was Mr. Fuller's age, like, I don't want a renter in my house, man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I've worked all these years and I'll be by myself and I don't be having to chase someone around and rent and work on the property, and that's crazy talk. But it would, unless I'm incorrect, it would be mostly white people, I think, who would benefit from such a policy. Old, fogey, race soldier white people who spent like a lot of decades on the planet practicing racism. Now I get to sit around in my house and not pay time. I think that would kind of be how this policy would ride out, mostly. I could be wrong, but nah.
Hey, Gus.
Yes, sir.
I do understand the response about not having people in your house and stuff like that. This is not pushback, but one thing that is a big complaint, especially around elderly people, is an epidemic of loneliness. And I think the ability to make money while having someone around who pays partial rent to you helps also deal with the loneliness issues that elderly people are having. So I think that might be a way of actually dealing with two birds with one stone, so to speak. I don't want to rent to nobody, but you know what? At least someone's around if I need help, especially as you get elderly. It's hard to do things, or if you need help, there's no one around to see you when you die right there on the spot. No one comes to see you for like days at a time.
They do say that's a problem. They had a major report about that in, I want to say the New York Times, but it might not be the New York Times. It was very recent, like this week. They had a big report about that, especially for people once they get older. Even they said that with the wildfires, that Mr. Nickerson was in his 80s. They had a lot of older individuals live by themselves. Not all, but they did have a number. They were older, lived by themselves, and it was really difficult. They had a big write-up. That was in the LA Times. I remember that explicitly, that it was horrendous trying to get these folks out if they didn't have anyone, and then trying to call someone, and last minute it was all dark. Can you imagine being like 85, 90, maybe you got a walker, what have you, maybe you have vision issues or what have you, hopefully you're in the best health you can be at that age, and you got to go out for some of it was dark, like 10, 11 o'clock, could have been later. You got to go out there, and dark, like also the electricity is out dark. And everything is, some people said it was like they went out and the whole neighborhood was on fire. That's the only light from the fire. The house is burning down. And you got to go out and all that and try and navigate at 85, 90. Come on. Like, man. So, for sure, that is super valedictorian. I would expect something logical. That does make a lot of sense, and they do have lots of well-written logical reports about the epidemic of loneliness, especially for older folks. So yeah, that could be win-win. Make a little money and maybe make a friend if you get someone who doesn't Jeff Dahmer, Ted Bundy kill you or steal all your money and run off. He did say a family member, though, not a stranger, to come in. Maybe a nephew or cousin, something like that. They can come and hang out. Housing is expensive, right? Young people, till they get their footing and all that. Win-win. Win-win. He did say his wife does not agree, though, so she's still... he did not convince even the wife, so... Any hoodles. Much obliged. Non-Clemson dad. 00 dimples as well. Number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I would like that law or proposition. He didn't say law. I'd like that proposition even more. There was a stipulation for non-white seniors. We're not non-white seniors. You're good. You have been super over, double, triple, quadruple taxed. You are good. White people, like, just what I said, they figure out so many different lies and concoct so many different deceptive ways to not pay taxes, as they say, their fair share. That no, and older white people, like, oh my gosh, you've had, like J. Strom Thurmond, you've had decades of time to practice white supremacy racism. I'm not saying every single white person, but you got lots of white people. You can pay your property taxes even after you retire. Like, you got it. You got it. You got a good number of old fogey white people. They got all kinds of passive income and property, and like, you're good. And you got younger white children. They can help you knock that down too, even if they didn't live with you. Like, yeah, I don't really like hanging out with you that much, and you didn't give me that horse I wanted when we were growing up, so I'll help you pay the taxes, but I'm not gonna. You're gonna have to do the lonely thing on your own, because I'm not. They can handle that tax thing, I think. Anyway, let's see. Star 61. Other folks, they have commentary to share. Let me see. There was one extra report I did not include. I'll double check that as well. Don't wait till the last minute if you have commentary. The report I did not get to include. Let's see. This is MSN News. Very mean when he drinks. Minnesota man who knocked black man unconscious in bar, who, after calling him racial slur, leaving victim with brain bleed, faces federal hate crime. This is from 2 days ago. A Minnesota man, George Floyd, is set to stand trial this month to answer assault charges nearly a year after he called a black man a racial slur at a bar, then punched him in the face and knocked him unconscious. Justin Kudlow was charged with assault after a violent encounter with a black bar patron at Huck's Shipwreck Saloon in Belle Plaine on February 3rd, 2024. I wonder what their Yelp reviews say. Like, Huck's, H-U-C-K, Huck's Shipwreck Saloon in Belle Plaine. That's one I want to see. What are the demographics for Belle Plaine, Minnesota? How many of George Floyd's people know about Belle Plaine? Got property there. Business, maybe. February 3rd of last year. That night, a witness told authorities that she heard the 35-year-old Cudler, white man, call 37-year-old Benjamin Morlock a racial epithet, then saw him strike Morlock in the face. Surveillance video showed the 2 a.m. attack and Cudler leaving Morlock on the ground unconscious for 20 minutes. After Morlock regained consciousness, someone from the bar helped him home. The next day, a Huck's employee went to Morlock's home to check on him and found him in bed going in and out of consciousness. Morlock went to the hospital where he had to be treated for a life-threatening brain injury. According to a GoFundMe page for Morlock's medical expenses, he reportedly suffered a brain bleed, clot, and swelling. He was released from the hospital 2 days after being admitted. A bartender at an establishment not far from Huck's told law enforcement that Cudler was drunk and beyond, in quotes. That night, he struck Morlock. She said Cudler, who was allegedly bothered by Morlock's sexuality, had been harassing Morlock a few weeks before the attack and called him a racial slur before. I want to give you the last sentence. The bartender told police Morlock is a wonderful person and his attacker, the white man, is very mean when he drinks. She didn't say he was very racist, very terroristic, broke his brain, had to go to the hospital with my brain, but yeah, he's right mean. We get a little of that Thunderbird. It's like, what? Why? And this is another one. They got that Emmett Till lynching bill and bragged about Joe Biden. Isn't that one that he wants to come and tout his record before we get ready to let Snoop drop it like it's hot? Why? Because, hey man, we got the Emmett Till lynching bill passed, even though we don't use it. Why? There you go, right there. Racial slur, and you broke his brain and all that. Why isn't that a case right there for the Emmett Till bill? You can do that on your way out. You go in and lame duck president, but I'm at least getting my word in. You use my law. I made it for a case just like this. You don't be going around breaking black people's brains. We're not going, nah, it's a new day. You got a couple days left, Joe Beasy. You could do it. You could do it. Come on. He could wheel out Kamala Harris. Have her do it. How about that? It's controversial. It's I put it on her. Then she could take all the blame and racial showcase times two. They'll fuss at Kamala Harris and then they fuss at Snoop Dogg. It's win-win. Nah. Anyway, don't let it be lost. What time did this happen? It's at 2 a.m. The great Dr. Kamal Kambon, and it was his phrase, cesspoolians. White people toxify the planet. Look at Los Angeles. But that is the great Dr. Kamal Kambon, Grand Cester, cesspoolians, talking about what race soldiers, white people, do to the planet-known universe. Dumped all that DDT off the coast of Los Angeles. But the great Dr. Kamal Kambon, nothing good happens on the plantation system of white supremacy, racism, being outside after 11 o'clock, 10:30, 10 o'clock, nothing good. Nothing. I've never read one of these reports where a black person, they got a business loan, they got a home loan approved that they had been biting it in. I don't know, you think we gonna get that house? Ooh, we about to get married. Yes! Yes! We were out at the bar, we were about to toast, and we got the message. Woo, I hit everybody. The whole round is on me, fellas. Got that home loan. Woo! I've never heard that. Job, promotion, bonus, none of the above. Dr. Kambon said repeatedly, nothing good. especially if you are young, teens, 20. Oh man, nothing good happens being out. I'm not blaming Mr. Morlock at all. Victim, he's 37 years old, victim of white supremacy. But just saying, no, system of white supremacy racism, what I've been saying for years. One of the worst combinations in the known universe. White people, alcohol. You are asking, get your brain broken. That's what you're asking for. Then you're asking, you should be thinking like, ooh, I am on the clock for being called a Negro. It is going up. That's shot number 2 up. T minus 30 seconds. If it's not calling you a Negro joke, what's the difference between you and a Negro? Some form of racial terrorism is coming. We got so many different, Bakari Henderson, there's so many different instances, and these are recent, and even my man Joe Mixon just played in the playoffs, didn't he? Houston Texans. He was in college. He almost didn't get out on the field to lose that game today. Do you know why? He was at a bar late night, got into a kerfuffle with a white woman, and whole future all up here. He wouldn't have been even out there today to grouse and claim, man, we done lost old Pat Mahomes. He would. I didn't get that far. I'm in prison. Why? At the white people, alcohol. That's what I mean. Black culture, we should know that by now. That's what I mean. Like, really pitiful BS. Not braiding hair, studying white people. That should be black culture so that we can get them up off of us. And then we can sit around, and if we didn't have a system of white supremacy, I wouldn't even care. You say Negro culture is braiding hair, whatever. I still, hey, we don't have a system of white supremacy, I still wouldn't kick it with y'all. Braiding hair all day, whatever, but hey, whatever. That's their thing. Who cares? That's their thing. Have at it. Have at it. But I mean, really, in a system of white supremacy racism, Negro culture ought to be studying what it means to be white. Replace white supremacy with justice. That is Negro culture. Braiding hair. Let's see. Make sure I didn't miss any other folks' commentary they wanted to get in. Again, no disrespect any of the folks who, particularly black males, if they braid hair, braid their offspring's hair, what have you. But again, that was not represented today. We will be here for the book club Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Even braiding one's own hair was not represented. Book club, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, this coming Thursday. I think we might even slip in for Dr. King's holiday on Monday. Have to pay attention and see how the scheduling goes, but I will update on social media. Stay tuned, but certainly at minimum, we will do it for the book club on Thursday. It has been so, I'm black. Dangerous. It has been a fascinating reading. We haven't even gotten to Patrice Lumumba in the book, and that is a big part of this text. Much like the last book, big part of how the text concludes. Looking forward, Dr. Maya Angelou. The great, and it seems we have a lot of folks who didn't read this book, aren't familiar with this book, so, and I was in that group as well. I'd never even heard of this text, and wow, it has been fascinating for so many reasons. Minister Malcolm X is in it too, like so many curious. As long as you're black and your butt points down, like What? Like, man, she is, wow. Dr. Maya Angelou giving us an incredible snapshot of a time period on the plantation. Any hoodles, listener-supported counter-racist radio. Invest. If you think the cows is constructive, hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com. racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. You'll see the links for PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. Huge thanks to all of the investors who have kept us broadcasting for 16 years. That's 4 different presidential administrations, Obese, both terms, Trump first time around, Biden, and now 2-time President-elect Donald Trump. Still haven't replaced white supremacy with justice. But we have been consistent, the effort, what we are attempting to do with the cows. 16 uninterrupted years on the microphone. Gus T, much obliged. Hopefully worthy of your time and energy, at least mostly. Sobriety would be best. Now, I am sure many of us got white homies, all that, maybe even black homies. Got to go and hang out and watch the football contest. Got Lamar Jackson and all of these. Right on. Sobriety would be best. Especially if you, what I just said, younger black people, I would not be at no sports bar. You saw what they did in Philadelphia. White man who worked for diversity and inclusion, equity, and he out yelling, being a foul-mouthed hooligan in the stand. He was yelling at a white woman. And then you say, oh yeah, I see how they could almost kill Mr. Morlock, left him unconscious to die. He was yelling at a white woman because we got wrong team, and I want to give your guy brain damage. I get so mad, I'm going to give a real black dude brain damage. You go out here and, wow, I give him a sack. I would not be at no tavern to watch the game and all that if you got to. Even if you're going to, have some sort of sporting party or contest. I know that's really popular, especially they get excited for these games. It's really important. Man, even if it's going to be all non-white people, sometimes people get really rowdy and excited, and they get it now. Everybody got money on the game, and oh my Lord, I didn't put all my rent money on the Chiefs, and or I didn't put all my rent money on Joe Mixon and the Texans. Oh, they ain't gonna get. Come on, man. Come on, I got to break the TV and fight somebody because they snickered and got on my nerves. And come on. I've seen all, especially once people get a few drinks in them. You can't watch football without drinks. They got promotions for it today. Tell you can't watch football without drinks. Sobriety would be best. Any hoodles, Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy, even Snoop. Yes, even SNOOP. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times. I do not think any person classified as black can exercise any level of black self-respect while name-calling another black person. Even Snoop, even Calvin wrote us. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. No name calling Snoop or other black people. No gossiping. No throwaway offspring. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.